Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 3, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 7 of 10 as we continue to charge away through the second half of the season, and what a second half we have in store. Last time out, we continued the story with the commencement of the second half in the United Kingdom at the venerable Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But today we've made our way back to the US of A for the state of Texas, and it is none other than the young but bountiful Texas circuit of what is the Circuit of the Americas, known more commonly as COTA in reference to the first initials of the 4 words that put its name together. It is a circuit that has only been around for 10 years, but in its 10 years it has continued to prove itself very strong as a racing circuit as a whole compared to its elder peers around the globe, borrowing elements from multiple international circuits including the likes of Silverstone, Spa and plenty others, and designed by Hermann Tilke, the name that may be controversial for some in terms of circuit design, but otherwise renowned in other regards. It is a circuit which has a wide racing surface and a wide variety of corners, and when put together, it naturally blends itself to any class of racing. And as our drivers get set to take on the west layout of the course today, in reference to the compass direction on which the corners sit, it is a circuit which will naturally lend itself towards touring car racing, with fast direction changes, heavy braking zones, a number of sweeping corners, and also some long straights, and therefore we can expect plenty of battling action from lights out to checkered flag in each of our 3 races. But welcome to you all as you tune in live to this broadcast, being brought to you by 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you may be tuning in by one of the 2 official NXTGEN Racing media platforms, including at YouTube at youtube.com. If you search for NXTGEN Racing, you could be tuning in there. Alternatively, if you're a Facebook user, you could be tuning in via facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. Or lastly, on the unofficial broadcast platform at twitch.tv/TX141, we welcome you there as well. But as we get ready to go racing today, let's take you through our schedule. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And in what is just under 18 minutes time, we make it our way into our qualifying session, our one and only of today, 15 minutes in duration, with all our drivers out of the circuit and all of them looking to make their mark as best as possible to get themselves underway with the pole positioning class of the day. After that, we'll make our way to the grid for our first of 3 races this evening. Our first sprint race being at 8:45, now being 14 laps in duration. No pit stops expected in any of the sprint races, and all of them of the same duration in terms of number of laps available. And then we'll take a brief breather before returning at approximately 9:25 for the build up to race number 2. And then we'll take another brief breather, and with the reverse grid draw also thrown into the mix there, and return at approximately 10:05 this evening for the build up to our final race of the day. It'll be race number 3. In the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I will bring you all your racing action today, indeed for the entirety of the season. And what a season it has been thus far, and we've still got plenty to go, with effectively 4 rounds still on the chart. But speaking of the chart or our calendar, let's take a look at it and tell you the story thus far and what we still got lying in wait. This series, of course, sponsored by Douglas Motorsport. So as we can see, we started off all the way back on the 18th of April with round number 1, and we got underway at the Silverstone International Circuit. There on the layout that we'd not previously used in the NXTCC, normally referring to the national layout rather than the international layout, we saw a grand multitude of 55 plus cars take to a very tight circuit, and well, there's very little room for our drivers to even breathe in qualifying, let alone when they went racing. But still, some names emerged at the top, and perhaps the most important one in the Pro class, John Higgins Jr. really laying down the mark. Then in round number 2, we saw the season inverted immediately, with a success ballast coming into full effect for the first round of the season in round number 2, and at the Imola circuit in Italy, John Higgins Jr. struggled by the wayside, whereas other drivers started to pounce forward, but we saw a good number of drivers really have difficulty, including Matthew Addy and Mikey Doble, just not quite able to find that momentum in the Prime and Pro classes respectively in looking to defend their championship titles. That was on the 25th of April. Now a week later, on the 2nd of May, we made our way over to Canada for what we like to refer to as Canadian Thruxton, but known more formally as Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and with its fast flying corners and sweeping corners. With that, we got to see some brilliant battling. And then overall championship leader Jamie Dory, despite the major success ballast which was attributed to his car of 56 kilograms, able to stay one step ahead of most of his rivals in the run-on round in the Hyundai Veloster. Then round number 4, we made our way to Long Beach. It's the first time the NXTCC has taken on a street circuit in its history, but there in the state of California in the US of A, we got to see on the 9th of May brilliant battling action, and the big name that came to the top, Linus Broström in the Pro-Am class, where we got to see Broström absolutely deliver and pick up his first win of the season. Then to conclude the first half of the season in round number 5, we made our way to Germany for the Nürburgring Grand Prix Sprint Strecker Circuit, and there on the 16th of May we saw the first half of the season come to a conclusion which nobody could have expected, but perhaps the most notable moment, the reappearance of Mikey Doble in terms of that form that we were expecting from season 2. He was able to pick up his first 2 wins of the season and absolutely deliver a critical moment and charge right to the top of the overall championship standings. Then we had our break week, and we returned last week on the 30th of May for the United Kingdom once again, and the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, originally scheduled to be Alton Park, but due to the number of drivers expected on the grid and down in the pit lane, we had to switch venue due to safety concerns. But in round number 6, Mikey Doble, despite all the success ballast in the car, managed to stay one step of the majority of the competition, not picking up wins, but picking up top 5s. And meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, we saw Michael Lees continue his consistent run of form and has emerged as the favourite potentially in the Pro-Am class, subject to how he gets on today. But speaking of today, it's the 6th of June, and therefore it's the circuit of the Americas today in the US of of A. And then after this round, in round number 8, we make our way down under to Australia for the Sandown Circuit, or the home of horsepower, and normally associated with V8 Supercar, with 2 drag strip straights and multitudes of corners in between them. We can expect our drivers there to have a relatively simple but sweeping circuit, which will put them all under pressure with regards to those heavy braking zones and need to carry all the speed as possible down the straights. Then in round number 9, we'll be making our way back to the United States of America for the final time this season. 3 visits to the US of A and back to the state of California, particularly up towards the northern tip for the Sonoma Point Raceway Circuit. And on the 20th of June, if you've never seen touring car racing at Sonoma, you're going to be in for a treat. It is a circuit like no other when it comes to touring car racing in the US of A. And then we bring it all to a close in Germany on the 27th of June, with round 10 of 10 being at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit. And there we'll see our drivers take to the National B Loud and who's going to come out to the top on the tight twists and turns and the relatively narrow raceway surface. Still plenty in store, however, and we're a long way away from crowning our champions. And well, speaking of our championships, let's give you a reminder how the championship stands after 6 rounds. We start off with the overall Drivers' Championship, and here we can see Mikey Doble continues to reign on top on 181 points. Now, finding himself 23 points clear of Andrew Pike, Doble's been able to withstand the pressure of the success ballast applied to his car, and once again today he'll be taking 56.1 kilograms his way, and Andrew Pike in return now will have the second highest success ballast, and for the first time this season, the Sim Racing Collective driver finds himself in P2. Behind him in P3, Jamie Dory losing some key points at Brands Hatch, but we do know that Dory's consistency and pace will continue to do him well, and he may be able to use the fact he's got a little bit less weight in the car today in order to be able to jump back up into the lead. Adam Dillman a further 2 points behind, with Andrea Roy complete in the top 5, and you can see our top 5 pro drivers at the moment separated by a margin of what is only there 40, I do believe it would be at 35 plus the 41 points in total as we do some quick mental mathematics, and when putting it all together it is fast, it's furious. In fact, it's 46 points between P1 through to P5, so let's do the maths correctly this time, but with only 46 points between them, at any point we could see things swing back and forth, and indeed the story is not done. Sam Smith is itching to get into the top 5 and only 3 points behind Romy. He's got a great opportunity to do so today, with the iRacing Esports drive to continue to grow in form as we've gone into the second half of the season, and with Joseph Doble, John Higgins Jr., Rafael Labarta and Gavin Garner completing your top 10, we can see there the battle for P7 is on, with the 4 belligerents only being separated by 13 points. Best of the rest in P11, it's Marcello Reles on 98 points, 4 clear of Alan McCain, with Damon Queen only behind McCain based on result countback, and it's Martin Shirley and Daniel Holmer who complete your top 15. Will Chadwick, having made his debut last time out with no success ballast in the car, absolutely in dominant form in all 3 races. Will Chadwick will be once again coming today without any success ballast, but already making his way up to P16, and he'll definitely know that if he's able to make 3 wins in a row again today, he'll have maximum success ballast or close as possible to it come the end of this round, going into round number 8 in a week's time. But then Wayne Douglas, a further 13 points behind, has had mixed fortunes over the course of the first 6 rounds of the season, but is continuing to rise up through the ranks and challenging for top 5s, if not overall podiums. Marco Benatelli, Neil Ferrier and Michael Lees complete your top 20, with Michael Lees being our leading prime there in the overall championship in P20 on 56 points, and he has an advantage of what is that, only 2 points to rival Andrea Talasco in P21. James Holman completes a P22 there, and with Reese White in P23, the battle is on between the 2 of them. Meanwhile, Dario Fighter a further 9 points behind, and Alex Meredith itching to get into the top 20, but first he needs to get ahead of his peers in the Pro-Am class that make the run to P21. Benjamin McCluskey only behind Meredith based on result countback, with Linus Brostrom not in attendance last time out, and we look forward to seeing him return in the near future, if not today. And Josh Millington, Isaac Doble and Matthew Sheraton complete your top 30, and Matthew Sheraton picking up his first 2 top 10 overalls of the season at last time out Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and also with it his first 2 wins in class. A fantastic day for the Aztec Racing driver, and we do look for the Aztec Racing driver, I should say, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on today on different territory, but still with all the momentum on his side. Moment Eriksson at P31 on 20 points, with 2 ahead of Paul Scott, with Lee Horn and Luke Jones tied on 14 points, but Jones behind Horn based on result countback. And it's Mark Sykes, Matthew Addy, Daniel Feder, Nick Clibbins, Robert DeSunic and James Maxesgow who complete your top 40. Outside the top 40 on 0 points yet to score any points in the overall championship is Gabriel Yilmaz, and 2 at the similar caliber, Ian Manners, Jackie Chalmers, Jake Pitt, Jonathan Collins, Josh Brown, Matthew Jolly, Michael Kurtler, Paolo Maniti and Phil McDougall, and we should make a special mention to Ian Manners, who made his debut in round number 6 for JW Motorsport. And then outside of the top 50, we can see there with negative points due to post-round penalties, Dylan Flanagan, Philip Bruberg, Philip Garside, Chris Byram, Marcello Felix, Daniel Fritz, and Costa Chatscontinantino, who's got minus 85 points as he has switched his car multiple times this season outside the allotted window and therefore picked up minus 70 points as of the Brands Hatch round. But coming from the overall championship standings to our individual Prime Championship standings, we can see here in the Prime class, it's Michael Lees who leads the way on 220 points ahead of Isaac Doble by 27. Now the key point here is that Michael Lees is establishing himself gradually as the favourite to take the Prime Championship crown this season. However, we can't say he's the favourite currently because we need to see him lead 3 rounds of the championship back to back, and that'll be his target today to carry on that run of form. Meanwhile, Isaac Doble for Doble Sim Racing is now closing down the next gen racing driver as best he possibly can, albeit Benjamin McCluskey a further 33 points behind. It does look as though the top 2 are trying to break away, and then McCluskey will be leading the rest of the field in pursuit. And for McCluskey, he's in a difficult situation. He's only got 3 points on Linus Brunstrom, who's P4, and then Reese Watt is a further 26 points behind in P5, with Paul Scott only outside the top 5 based on result countback. Matthew Sheraton in at P7 there, ahead of Lee Horn, with Alex Meredith and Luke Jones completing your top 10. And then best the rest in P11, it's Matthew Addy on 108 points, only 6 out of the side of the top 10, and reigning champion, looking to try and surge on through, and Brands Hatch eluded him last time out. But where are manners and the fact many a driver had difficulty at Brands Hatch, and in P5, Reese Watt as well, having put it on pole for the purposes of the first race of the day, ended up in disaster after the first race and could not truly recover. For Matthew Addy, he's found that recovery challenging, but he's standing still clear of Andrea Talasco as P12, ahead of Dario Furta, Melvin Eckerson and Mark Sykes, and then Nick Clemens P16 ahead of Phil McDougall, with Jake Pitt, Daniel Fadder and Ivan Bullkamp completing your top 20. Outside the top 20 of our primes, it's James Manscascal P21, 5 points clear of the parent of Chris Byron and Jonathan Collins, along with also Palamaniti to make it a triplet, and then Matthew Jolly P25 ahead of Ian Manners, with Marcello Felix, Daniel Fritz, Michael Kirtland and Josh Brown completing your top 30. Gabriel Yumas picking up his first points of the season last time out of Brands Hatch P31, and on negative points shoots the post-round penalties, Philip Garside, Philip Bruberg, Costa Chatscontinantino and Dylan Flanagan, who round out your Prime Championship. But then coming on to the Teams Championship, which we weren't able to give you an update on last time out, but we can today. We can see it's Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport who'd lead the way on 344 points ahead of Doble Sim Racing. The gap now extending to 41 points. In fact, I can't do mathematics there, I do apologise. But with a 41 point gap, it does look as though Next Gen Racing with Douglas are starting to break away, albeit Doble Sim Racing will be looking to keep them honest. How they may find themselves instead being kept on the foot of their feet, and the fact we do have Sim Racing Collective in P3 only a further 4 points behind, and it's a sizable gap with 69 points there to iRacing Esports in P4. VRGT Racing Team in P5, they're only ahead of GRT Esport based on result countback, with Meredith Motorsport, Bright Esport, Sergi Fortis Racing and Next Gen Racing completing your top 10, and an interesting battle there for the final 3 spots inside the top 10, with Bright Esport through to Next Gen Yellow only separated by 32 points, and outside the top 10 we can see a further 10 points off it's RD Simsport with their 88 points. Alters Esports up to P12 already on 75, where maximum point score last time out for William Chadwick, and then Next Gen Racing Blue P13 ahead of JW Motorsport in the battle for P13, with Aztec Racing only a further point behind. COTA E-Motorsports completes the round of teams with points on the board, with 13 points in P16, and then yet to score any points at Performance Link Esports, Chalmers of Flanagan Racing, and Biff, Hornet and Epic Collective, who round out your 19 teams in the Teams Championship. But coming from our championship update then to our circuit for today, it's none other than the Circuit of the Americas West Layout, located in Austin in the state of Texas in the United States of America. And this originally purpose-built for Formula 1 racing, Hermann Tilke designed circuit that opened in 2012. Well, it's playing host to multiple disciplines of racing, extending from skip barber Formula all the way towards Formula 1 and also closed wheel racing such as touring car racing and GT3s. But as its core, as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com, thank you to them for their wonderful circuit maps that come with the absolutely brilliant simulator. Its 17 corners are all about direction change. And as our drivers charge their way through at the start-finish straight and up towards turn number 1, and we say up because it is quite a significant rise, akin in a way to the run up through Eau Rouge at Spa-Francorchamps, our drivers will find their way breaking into turn number 1 as late as possible before coming charging down the hill through the Kinkatu. They're heading into the S-sequence, the Serpentina turns 3, 4 and 5. We'll see our drivers deviate from the Grand Prix circuit by taking a sharp sharp left turn at turn number 6, and it's a left-hand right-angle corner before they head through the quick chicane at turns 7 and 8 and into the braking zone for turn number 9. And then they have a short run down the back straight up towards turn number 10, where they make their way through the infield layout section of 10 through to 16, where they'll find their way through a number of hairpin style corners, starting with turn number 11, and as they go through the kink of 12 and into the heavy braking zone of 13, they'll then come out and emerge into the sweeping long right-hander at turns 14 and 15, for it's a downhill run through 16 where track limits will be heavily enforced, and then up towards turn 17, it's through the left-hand right-angle corner to complete the lap and start it all over again. The laps here are going to be quite long. We're expecting a lap time of somewhere in the region of 1 minute 40 on average, but you can imagine with that length there'll be plenty of battling from lap to lap, and indeed with a wide racing surface it is going to be quite tight on the run into each and every corner, with 2 or 3 wide being possible. As we come onto our rules for today, just to give you a reminder before we go racing, we can see setup-wise, it's a fixed setup series with setup provided to every driver ahead of the round as provided by NXTGEN Racing. Driver class-wise, the classes were finalised as of round 3, so therefore if we have got any class changes, they are by emergency or due to the fact a driver has only just recently joined the series and therefore we've had to quickly change their class, but I can inform you that we've got no driver class changes today. Sprint race-wise, the race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying, that's a given. The race 2 grid shall be set based on results of race number 1. What that means is the winner of race 1 starts on pole for race 2, and we work our way down through at the finishing positions of race 1 to set the grid of race 2 accordingly. But meanwhile, the race 3 grid shall be a reverse grid based on results of race 2, with the caveat that the reversal position shall be drawn live from the commentary booth. Indeed, we'll cut over to myself in the commentary booth and I'll do the lottery ball draw, and it'll be between P13 and P23. And if we happen to pick P13 out of the bowl, well, then what that will mean is we reverse the grid from the 13th place finisher in race number 2. So the 13th place finisher starts on pole for race number 3, and we work our way up the order to the race winner of race 2. They start in P13. For those who finish 14th and downwards in race 2, that's exactly where they start on the grid for race number 3. Each driver shall have one faster pair available in each race, and well, we might see them come to the pits, but it's only for repair work. Alternatively, they picked up a drive-through penalty, but more on that in a second. And each race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount, which is 14 laps today, or 30 minutes, whichever one expires first. But we are expecting the laps to expire first unless we do see multiple lengthy safety cars. Now coming on to race stewarding. We can see that independent race directors shall be stewarding the races for track limit infringements and also the deployment of the safety car, and there will be penalties for track limit infringements as distributed as follows. The first through to third warnings, there's no penalty. The fourth warning is a 5-second post-race time penalty. Make it a fifth warning, we double that to 10 seconds post-race time penalty, and on the sixth warning, we'll see a drive-through penalty being given to a driver, and they must be served within 3 laps of being awarded. Racing incidents, meanwhile, shall be reviewed post-round. And then lastly, just to update you on the success ballast, we continue to apply success ballast to the top 10 drivers in the overall Drivers' Championship based on the standings prior to each round, and that's before post-round penalties are applied. And as we can see for this round, Mikey Doble continues to take the maximum success ballast of 56.1 kilograms, with Andrew Pike now having 48.2 kilograms. But interestingly there, Sam Smith in P6 now 20.5 kilograms and finding himself with the heaviest success ballast he's had to deal with thus far this season. And will he be able to move further up the order, or will he have to stay in P6? And Gavin Garner with only 4.7 kilograms, I would imagine the Audi RS3 driver will be absolutely itching to try and achieve some major results, given the fact that Audi is going to be absolutely rampant on the straights, and there are a good number of them here today. That's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. You're all here for the racing, so we head back to our live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, and as our drivers get set and ready to go racing, well, we do look to Mikey Doble making his way on around currently, and well, the Doble Sim Racing driver having jumped from the real world hot seat at Thruxton over the weekend, in which he performed very well in all 3 races, and I do believe picked up overall championship points in all 3 races, and also the Jack Sears Trophy at Thruxton. But as he makes his way on to the virtual asphalt now, the Doble Sim Racing driver will be looking to try and go one step further today and keep himself ahead in the championship standings. But it is going to be tight around here, and with all that weight in the car, it is going to be an uphill battle, and not just because he's driving uphill in towards turn number 1, as we can see on the pictures right now. But as Doble makes his way uphill, we also look to Matthew Cheverton, the superstar of last time out of Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit for Aztec Racing. And as he makes his way up the hill towards turn number 1, the 390 driver here will be looking to try and make it more wins on to his name, or at least podiums in the Prime class, and perhaps some overall top 10s. But will he be able to do so? That'll be the challenge that faces him as he makes his way down through the sweeper of turn number 2. With only 10 seconds before we do go into the qualifying session, we do say hello to a good number of you, including Handsome Stu there in the YouTube chat, also to Revical, also to Scullion, also there to Cup, who says Cheverton should be 5th looking at the points. And I do believe we may have had some slight errors there with a couple of totals, and we will get those fixed for next week. But Cheverton are very close to P5, if not P5 in the Pro-Am class, in the championship stands that is. And we also say hello there to Daniel Fritz in the Facebook chat, who's absolutely itching to go racing. I do believe Fritz may be on the grid this evening, but if not, he'll be tuning in from the comfort of his own home. And either way, we're very happy to have you with us, Daniel. But as we head into qualifying then, ladies and gentlemen, it's lights out and away we go for the first session in anger today. And as all the drivers file their way on around the circuit here, will Jamie Dory leading the field and out at the moment and absolutely going on through and in towards turn number 2 already. Now, what can we expect today in terms of this qualifying session? Well, there's only 15 minutes available, and with a lap time of just shy of 2 minutes, we are expecting there to be a limited number of qualifying laps for our drivers. In terms, we should see our drivers getting on average about 5 to 6 laps, albeit that is presuming they will have a cool-down lap, or alternatively a moment where they go back to the pits and decide to put on a new set of boots or tyres, or alternatively put a bit more fuel in the car. But in terms of how we expect our drivers to position themselves in qualifying, that's probably the bigger fault here. Well, this circuit is a very odd one in the fact you do have a number of straights, but you also have a number of sweeping corners where you do not want the dirty out of another car in front of you. And as we know, with these touring car racing class machines, they are front engine front wheel drive. In the fact, the engine's in the front, and with them being front wheel drive, the front tyres do all the hard work, whether it be cornering, or alternatively power application when you put the throttle down. So therefore, understeer is going to be the biggest risk that our drivers face here today, as we do see a little bit of a coming together here, I do believe, between the 212 of Alan McCain and the number 28 car there across the Continentino. Both drivers there trying to position themselves well, and Continentino, I think, feeling as though he should be in front of the iRacing Esports Elantra, but the velocity drive being made to hold at bay. And as they head up towards what is their turns 14 and 15, meanwhile, we do look to Alex Meredith as we say hello there to Catherine and John Meredith in the YouTube chat, who are cheering on, I do believe, their son Alex Meredith as he makes his way out towards the final corner. And with everybody queuing up here as they come through turn number 17, understandably so, given the fact that it is all about finding that space. And we do see there what is, I believe, the Altus Esports machine, the Honda Civic Tyre Park pulling over to the side. And that was the car of, what is it, Redford, as they make the way up the hill. As they, well, William Chadwick, in fact, I should say, as they make the way up the hill. And as they come up through the left-hander turn at number 1. Well, Alex Meredith here going on to his first flying lap and having plenty of clear air in front of him. And we'll get on board with a couple of our drivers very shortly once they've gone on to their second or third flying laps and they've got their tyres in full temperature condition and also the brakes to go with it. But as we also say hello there to John Higgins in the YouTube chat, who I do believe will be cheering on John Higgins Jr. Jr. currently in the pit lane as we're to understand it, not out on circuit. And as our drivers make the way on around, we have had quite a few drivers join quite late to this session, given the fact that we have had a update to iRacing as of today, and the service only became available once again at 4 o'clock this afternoon in British Summer Time. So therefore, a good number of drivers who've come home from their day jobs have only just had the opportunity to update their iRacing clients and therefore get onto the grid. So therefore, it is definitely going to be a bit of an odd one. I think some drivers may not have got themselves fully established or gone through their pre-qualifying rituals that you normally see in the practice session, and therefore we could see some drivers find themselves out of position. But of course, those who fall out of position have to give way to those who make the way into aforementioned positions. And Reece Watt is perhaps the man to watch out most for today in the Pro-Am class of JW Motorsport, simply because he'll be chomping between the bit to bounce back after the difficulties of Brands Hatch. On pole by what was a 10th in the end versus Michael Lees, and right up there inside the top 10. It all went wrong through Paddock Hill Bend on the opening lap, and so he dropped down the order like a stone. And then further instance on lap number 1, it meant that he was only fighting to be outside the top 10 in all 3 races. But as he comes out to turn 16, we've got a car off there, and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that's one of the VRGT machines that's gone wayward at 16. We're not quite sure what the story is behind it, other than they've got it wrong. But drivers now starting to make their way out of the final corner, and as what comes to the timeline, what's going to be his first time on the board? In fact, it's a invalidated lap by the looks of things as he crosses the timing line now, and what does not get a lap on the board initially, so he'll look to go again very shortly. Meanwhile, James Mansell makes his way out of the pit lane, yet to actually put a time on the board, and therefore I think with some difficulties in his first couple of flying laps has decided to put the car back together in the pit lane and go immediately back out there, as I think he recognises he's on camera there, flashing his lights, alternatively saying to the drivers in front, look, I'm coming on through. But either way, as he makes his way through turn number 2 and up towards 3, 4, 5, he's going to have quite a train of cars in front and behind him, which you can see on the circuit map there. A bit of a lonely circuit for one driver in particular, and that is none other than Michael Lees, who's all out there on his lonesome at the moment. And here he is, he makes his way out the final corner, and we jump aboard with Michael Lees, your Pro Championship leader, for an onboard lap of the Circuit of the Americas West Layout Circuit. He's making his way up towards turn number 1 and getting ready to find his brake marker and brake as late as he dares there, approximately what is 75 metres from corner apex, and oversteps the corner, but lets the car run deep and collects it on the exit curb as he brings it over to the left for the right under turn number 2. Flat out through here, using plenty of apex curve to rotate the car. Now heading to turn at number 3, the left-hander, where he'll need to avoid the sausage curve. Then through the right at turn number 4, lift off and let the car roll through into 5. Drop a gear as the speed continues to fall. And as he makes his way into turn number 6, through the sharp left-hander, and now into the chicane at turns 7 and 8. Third gear, hover over the throttle, and then onto the brakes there. Chuck it down to second gear, and power out to turn number 8 and up towards turn number 9. That's the first half of the lap complete, and now into the first of a number of hairpin type corners, cutting plenty of apex there at turn number 9. Got to be careful not to catch too much. Now heading in towards turn number 10. Onto the brakes through the right-hander and using all the sausage curve there to help rotate the car. Then coming through 11 into 12, and as he makes his way through the blistering left-hander into 13, onto the brakes and dropping down to first gear, just gradually hesitating on the throttle and back on the power as he now heads up towards turns 14 and 15. If we're in high downforce cars, we'll be going flat out for this double right-hander, but instead it's about lifting off on the exit of 14 to set up the run through 15, carry the speed in 4th gear, keep the car to the right to set up 16, and as he goes into left-hander on the brakes down to 2nd gear, bring the car through, then back on the power immediately, use the runoff area there to extend the exit up towards turn number 17, onto the brakes 100 metres from corner apex down to 2nd gear, put 2 wheels over the inside curving, and round he goes, and with that, that's a lap of the Circuit of the Americas West Layout brought to you by Michael Lees. What's it going to be as he heads to the timeline this time around? Is it going to be enough to put him right up there? It was a smooth lap, but I think it may have been an invalid lap given the fact that time has not counted, and I think he was classified as off track effectively at what would have been the run through turn number 9, where he did take a big chunk out of the hairpin apex. But as he makes his way through turn number 2, he'll need to get a time on the board soon, given we've only got half the qualifying session really left to go. But meanwhile, up there at the moment is what is Andrew Romy in the Audi RS3, and as he heads into the right-hander here, well, we can see the number 88 driver looking comfortable. But as soon as I say that, I'm made to mark my words in the fact that Martin Shirley has gone faster there on a 140.836, and it's 1.5 tenths between them. And then Gavin Gardner jumps in between Shirley and Romy, and so everybody's finding time. And it does look as though a limited number of Audi drivers are finding the lap time that others are not able to find, albeit it's this man from RD Simsport. Martin Shirley is really delivering right now, and the number 5 driver here absolutely enjoying the Honda Civic Type R. Now, in terms of what car we can expect to be the strongest here today, there's no real contender for the strongest. Arguably, we could say the Honda might be right up there, given the fact it's more of a handling car rather than a power car, and this is a circuit which is about 75% handling and 25% power. But to say that would also be to admit that we do have what is a good number of key traction zones which are highly extended, particularly the run out of the final corner up towards turn number 1, and also the run on down from turn number 2 in towards 3, 4, 5 and 6, and off of 9 into 10, and that's where the power capabilities of the likes of the Audi RS3 and the Hyundai Elantra will go very well. But one thing that will definitely be on the minds of our Elantra drivers will be the fact that they're going to be experiencing a high amount of tyre wear, albeit we look to a Veloster driver here of Marco Benatelli, and the Veloster jack of all trades, master of none, as we've seen all season and in previous seasons of the NXTGEN. But the Elantra drivers will have to manage that front tyre wear, given the fact that this circuit is highly aggressive to tyres, particularly that front right tyre, which will be going through the major elements. And as we do see there, Daniel Fritz taking a very slow run down towards turn number 9. I think just backing off to let the field on through, given the fact he's trying to find himself some clear track on circuit. Well, he's finally going to get up to speed now with the driver coming past him of what is that, I believe, Mark Sykes making his way on through, but Daniel Fritz just taking it casually as we do see him out of the circuit. And we said hello to him in the Facebook chat earlier, but he's no longer in the Facebook chat. He's there focusing his heart down on the racing for Whiskey Runners Racing. But as he comes out of turns 11 and 12 and into 13, meanwhile, now fastest driver out there is Altus Esports' William Chadwick as he makes his way into left-hand at turn number 17. And as the number 192 driver makes his way on around, keep in mind, of course, he's a late joiner to the season and therefore has no success ballast at the moment. So we would expect, given his pace at Brands, to actually be right up there at the very top. And with a 3/10 of a second advantage to Martin Shirley, that is definitely going to give him quite a gap to work with in this qualifying session. Can anybody bring that gap down by 10th or 2, let alone the full distance, and usurp him? I think that will be the challenge. But meanwhile, looking to the Prime class, where it's currently provisional pole in Prime class, P8 overall, Matthew Addy, and well, he's half a second for the overall time. But the key thing here is this is the first time in the season we have seen Addy up on a provisional pole in the Prime class. Indeed, the highest we've seen prior to that was P4 in class, but now as he makes his way through turn 6 into 7 and 8, well, the Veloster driver here feeling quite comfortable. The Veloster might be a bit of a dark horse here, given the fact it's an all-rounder, and you can take a car with a little bit of everything and make it very well at a handling circuit with some power elements. But as the number 1 driver makes his way through turn number 9 and up towards 10, he won't take anything for granted, given the fact we do have the top 21 separated by only 1 second. And at the bottom of that top 21 is this man from iRacing Esports in the Audi RS3. It's Nick Clibbins as he makes his way out of the final corner and towards the timeline. And let's jump aboard with Clibbins for a lap. So he makes his way up towards turn number 1. And we'll see the difference in gearing here of the Audi compared to its rivals, with being more focused towards the higher gears and then on to the brakes as late as he dares, and coming down the gearbox into 3rd gear, let the car roll on through, then get back on the power, and then use the power oversteer there to make his way into turn number 2, up to 5th gear as he comes on through the right hand, having to lift up the throttle slightly there to set the car for turn number 3. Turns in too early, you can see that corrective steering being put in, and the car just understeers away from him. And for Clemens, well, it's going to be a lap that's going to be aborted immediately, but it's so easy to get it wrong around here, particularly for the opening 6 corners. And as he brings the car through the chicane and onto the back straight, we'll jump away from Clibbins here in terms of the onboard lap, and he'll get himself set up once again very shortly, but definitely coming unstuck. And I think he could be one of many to come unstuck in these final 4 minutes. But meanwhile, looking from him to Andrew Pike, the Sim Racing Collective driver, making his way up towards turn number 9 at a gradual rate of knots, albeit he's tucked into a long train of cars here, including with the number 77 car. I do believe that Adam Delman and also Mikey Doble just in front. We've got there, I think that is Wayne Douglas on the apex, and Douglas comes back on a raised line, and well, I don't think Andrew Pike's going to be too pleased. Like, you can see a flash of lights there immediately from the Honda Civic Type R driver, in the fact he feels the Veloster driver just completely elbowed him out of the way and showed him no room. And well, it's a bit damning there, but still, I think right now Pike will be making his way on around, and Douglas does let off in the end effect. He says sorry, but as all our drivers that make the way on around, definitely a difficult space right now. And that's the problem, of course, when you do have on a circuit such as this a grand total of 33 drivers out on track at the same time. Well, we do have quite a bit of clear track at certain parts, but for the most part it's quite crowded. And well, this season we have seen fields upwards of 50, but for this round in particular we are seeing a slightly depleted number of drivers on the field, and I do reckon that may be due to the iRace update. But as they make their way up towards turn number 1, time is running out here, and track room is also at a premium as we see Sam Smith coming out of turn number 16 up towards 17 at 2.5 minutes to go, yet to get a time on the board, as Chadwick goes even faster for pole on a 40.354 with Joseph Doble going P2 at the moment. It's the 2 Civics on the front row. And the Smith heads to the timeline this time. Can he get a valid time on the board, or is he going to have to try and find it again? It looks like Smith really struggling here, and well, if he can't put this time together soon, this is going to be a complete upset and a disastrous run of turnaround with regards to iRacing Esports drivers. Really been building momentum over the last couple of rounds, and now all that momentum will have been completely knocked away as he makes his way through 2 and into 3. And meanwhile, we look to Daniel Fritz, and he makes his way up the hill into turn number 1, and the Whiskey Runners Racing driver here, P23, P10 in the Prime class. And as he comes on down, Nick Clemens will be his next target. The gap between the two of them only 300. See if that, as he rolls his way on through. And another driver who's struggling, Josh Millington, the pro driver who we had incorrectly listed as the Prime last week on the Brands Hatch broadcast, but as he makes way across the timeline, moves up to P15 on the 41.110, and well, coming up towards the next braking zone. The Sim Racing Collective driver's running out of time, and he definitely wants to be a bit higher up the order along the signs and the likes of his teammate Andrew Pike in P6. That would be his target, but for Millington it's just not coming to fruition today as he comes through 2 and in towards 3 he goes. As we hear, Jonathan Collins has made his way into the pit lane. Gavin Garner's just jumped up to P2 on a 40.499. Alex Meredith's gone P9 on a 40.889. And Isaac Doble's up to P15 on a 41.067. So quite a few drivers finding more time out there. As Mikey Doble moves up to P4. Pike's up to P5. Reese Watt is back on with provisional pole in the prime class as he makes his way up the hill, and the JW Motorsport driver into the braking zone here for turn number 1. He's got a bit of traffic in front of him, and this may just come and scupper him into a degree, but we ride on board with him as he makes his way on down, and we take him all the way to the end of the lap. He's going through turn number 2 and in towards 3 here. We can see that gearing of the Audi, 5th gear as he makes his way into turn number 4, drops the gear and holds in 4th gear for as long as possible, or shifting back up to 5th, and now into turn number 6 he goes, and you can see there the car constantly wanting to be in a higher gear as he bounces his way down through the chicane and in towards turn at number 9 he charges as he heads in towards the braking zone. Now heading on to the brakes here through the left-hander, and we did see that the Sim Racing Collective car of Pike move aside and come into turn at number 11. Onto the brakes here goes Watt as he comes through the right-hander and now into 12. Well, we've got a checkered flag out in this qualifying session. We're going to stay with Watt all the way to the end and into 13. A long braking zone there. You have to trail brake into it after the kink as he comes out to the corner, bouncing off the rev limiter in 2nd gear, up into 4th. It's very rare we see an Audi driver use 2nd gear. Normally it's 3rd or higher, but as he comes on through, has to lift off the throttle, then rotates the car back in, but really having to fight with the car as he comes into turn number 16. The car just not wanting to actually rotate. That's the understeer element as he holds the throttle there and onto the brakes for turn number 17. He goes very shortly, coming all the way down to 3rd gear, mounts the apex curve, there goes very wide, and for Reese, what is a complete disastrous end to the lap, and for what that will not be a lap where he's going to improve in the end as he comes to the timeline. Meanwhile, Matthew Cheverton behind him improves to P12 overall, when he's P4 in the prime class. We've still got a couple more drivers yet to get a time in, and Lee Horn making his way on around here. Can Horn find a way to improve? We had an off track at the final corner, so I think the answer may be no. But what about Matthew Addy as Addy heads into the pit lane? So Addy will not be taking prime pole position. We've got also there Alan McCain heading across the timeline, I do believe. And McCain in the end, well, he's P26, and that's where he'll stay. Marcello Rell is heading towards the timeline as he comes on down towards the pit lane. And in fact, he decides to abort it there. So Rellas will not be improving. And we've also got Mark Science coming on around, and he will be the last driver to put in a qualifying lap here today at the Circuit of the Americas. But what's it going to be for Sykes? He heads to line. It's not an improvement. Sykes stays P27. So it is going to be William Chadwick who takes overall pole position. And then in P6 overall, it'll be this man, Reese Watt, who takes prime pole position once again like Brands Hatch last week, but his target this time around will not to have it taken from him in terms of his leading position come the end of the first corner. But will it play out that way in actuality? We'll find out soon as all drivers get set and ready to go racing. But surprises in the field, Wayne Douglas P15, Josh Millington P18 in his weakest qualifying session of the season thus far. And well, all the drivers now being asked to make their way into the pit lane, and they get themselves set. And Matthew Cheverton, hero of the prime class at Brands Hatch, we start in P12, a respectable P4 in the prime class on the grid, and I think for the Aztec Racing team they'll be very pleased with that, and Cheverton really becoming a outside chance of a championship crown here, or at least the top 5 in the championship come the end if he carries on this form. But as we make our way to the grid then for our first race of the day, this is how they'll line up for race 1 of round 7 of season 3 of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship, sponsored by Douglas Motorsport. William Chadwick takes pole position for Altus Esports, joined by Gavin Garner for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport. Behind him on row number 2 is Joseph Doble for Doble Sim Racing and his teammate Mikey Doble, overall championship leader P4. And then we have Andrew Pike, who starts P5 on the 3rd row of the grid for the Sim Racing Collective, joined by JW Motorsports, Reese Watt, and your prime pole sitter starts P6. Marco Benatelli for GRT Esports starts P7, joined by RD Simsports Martin Shirley P8, with Andrea Romy P9 there for GRT Esports, and the top 10 being rounded off by Alex Meredith for Meredith Motorsport. P11, P12 on the 6th row of the grid, it's Matthew Addy and Matthew Cheverton, followed up by the pairing on row number 7 of Michael Leese and Marcello Reles, and then on row at number 8 it's Wayne Douglas and Jamie Dory, followed up by Isaac Doble and Josh Millington on row number 9. Completing your top 20 on row number 10, it's Paul Scott and Adam Delman, followed up on row 11 by Lee Horn and Daniel Fritz, and behind them on row number 12 it's Sam Smith and Nick Clibbins. On row number 13, it's Ian Manners and Alan McCain, followed up by Mark Sykes and Jonathan Collins on row 14. And to complete your top 30 and with it your top 15 rows, it's James Mansgale and John Higgins Jr. Then we have on row number 16 Palamaniti and Philip Garside, and starting on row number 17 by his lonesome P33, it's Costa Chatscontinentino, who did not get a lap on the board, much like Garside, but that'll be your grid for our first race of the day, ladies and gentlemen, and we are almost set to go racing as we do look down to track side a little bit closer compared to the heli view, and as all our drivers wait on the grid, we're only 1 or 2 cars away from getting the lights out procedure, but it is Chadwick who starts on pole, alongside him Gavin Gardner there a little bit further back, but the Audi very fast off the line compared to its peers if it's nailed at the start, and that's exactly what Gardner will be looking to do as they make the way up the hill. And well, with that uphill run as well, many a driver, when the circuit was revealed, complained about the fact they were starting uphill from P1, but can Chadwick get over it? We await the lights. There's 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our first race today in round 7 in the NXTGEN Season 3 as Garner nails the launch, and as they make the way up the hill, well, Chadwick's going to have to try and come back up the inside immediately as they head into the opening braking zone. Chadwick takes the peak, but Garner covers him off. Meanwhile, the field behind all comes on through, but Chadwick goes overly deep, and as they make the way through turn number 1, plenty of drivers, they're getting stuck further on down. We've got a car around by the looks of things in the run through turn number 1. We'll try and get an understanding of what happened there shortly, as our drivers roar their way down through turn 2 and into 3. Well, most drivers have been able to survive the opening couple of corners. They make the way now in towards turns 5 and 6 and into left-hander very shortly of the chicane of 7. We see Isaac Doble here. He's gained 3 places overall since the start and 1 place overall. And we've got a car off there in the back of the picture. Not quite sure who that is who's taking a bit of an odd line, but I can tell they've got it wrong. It's in front there. Oh, Isaac Doble is Romy who's got it wrong as well. Andrew Romy onto the grass. But meanwhile, as we look from the midfield to further down towards the back of the pack, Nick Clibbins here battling side by side with what is Adam Delman, trying to make the move, bit of contact between the two of them in the battle for P19 as they make the way out to turn number 10. Up towards 11 they go onto the anchors, and then we've got Reese Watt, who once again, Reese Watt jumps all the way down to P23 from P6 where he started, and the JW Motorsport driver just cannot have any luck whatsoever, and you can understand why he's been very forceful as they come through turn number 13 side by side with Sykes. We see they're going off the road. That was Sam Smith taking a wide line, and as they make the way through 14, it's the battle of the Audi drivers, and Watt here being made to take the long way round if he wants to get this done versus Sykes. Can't sit back to the inside of 15, but the problem is it's now a left-hander that's coming up, and Sykes is in the prime position to defend this so long as he doesn't overextend. But Watt looks at the cut back there, and Sykes does overextend on our call, and as they make the way out 16 towards 17, Reese Watt moves up to P22. But after 1 lap of racing, it is William Chadwick who leads ahead of Gavin Garner P2. Behind him, Joseph Doble P3, followed by Andrew Pike P4. But you can see here Pike versus what is Mikey Doble in the battle for P4 as they make the way into the brakes. Mikey Doble at the inside, Pike there in the middle of the road, and Michael Lee says, can I make it a three-way fight please, as they make the way down towards turn number 2, but the prime leader falls back behind as they come roaring on through the right-hander at turn number 2. Now heading up towards 3, 4 and 5, we can see that run for the order. Least is P6, Matthew Cheverton immediately behind P7, second place in the prime class, followed by Wayne Douglas P8, Martin Shirley P9, and Matthew Eddy completes your top 10, third place prime, followed up by Josh Millington, best of rest in P11. But as they continue to make their way through turn number 7 in towards 8 now, for a chicane they go once again. We've had a few stories at the start of this race. In fact, we've got a car off there, and that is Adam Delman, the NXTGEN Race with Douglas Motorsport driver, going very wide there at the run through 6 into 7 and 8. And as he comes back to the racing line, where everyone crowds their way past him, and everyone itching to try and make an early move here, and will not working out for Delman as he finds himself at a 3 wide on the outside into turn number 10. Well, 3 wide does not go there, and it goes horribly wrong, with James Manscale gets sent sideways there across the front of Delman's car. Delman rejoins, but now battle side by side with Alan McCain, the two pros here, both having a difficult start, with McCain qualifying out of position. Adam Delman, by comparison, falling down the order after an early mistake. As they make the way through turn number 13 now, they'll settle down for a brief moment, but looking at from them back up through the field, and particularly to Michael Lees, well, he's now up into P5, but he goes overly deep there, turn 16, and Matthew Cheverton looks up the inside. This is for the lead of the prime class. Cheverton goes onto the brakes here, where it's going to be an inside run initially, but he's going to have to give the space to Lees on the outside, side by side on corner exit, and the Aztec Racing Honda, it does not have the straight line speed compared to the NXTGEN Racing Elantra based on the balance of performance. But the thing about this is that Cheverton will have the brakes. If he can hold that inside line and prevent Lees from coming across, across. He will be able to push this back with the Britain as they make the way to the anchors. Side by side into the hairpin, a one, at least on the outside. They still give one another plenty of room, but this is brilliant battling of Matthew Sheraton. As we said at Brands Hatch, we're not quite sure what he has at breakfast now, but in the second half of the season, it's firing him up every round. And as he makes his way into turn number 3, side by side he goes. Elise is still there, but Elise has to back out in the end as they come down. In turn number 6, contact there to the rear of Elise's car from Wayne Douglas. Almost sends Elise onto his side, 2 wheels high as he made his way over the sausage curb. But that's what happens with the Constantino and Matthew Addy. Now going up the inside here, and Martin Shirley in the battle for P9 overall. And Addy, I think, can taste the prospect of a potential prime win here today if he can gain a couple more places. But as they make the way into turn number 10, you can see there up the inside goes Josh Millington, who's come out of left field. He's gained 8 places since the start of this race, 5 in the Pro class. Battling side by side with Shirley are the 2 Honda Civic drivers, the RD Sim Sport car Shirley on the inside as they make the way out to turn 11. Through 12 they go, and Millington having to back off there, knowing there's not enough space to try and force it through 12. Romy goes hot on the brakes, meanwhile the Audi driver here simply says, well, don't mind if I do, and Millington being caught napping on that one as they make the way out towards turns 14 and 15. Through the double right they go, and everybody now settles down for a brief moment as they make their way on around and out towards turns 16 and 17. We've had quite a dramatic start to the racing today, and perhaps the most dramatic one of all was the instant at turn 1 on the opening lap, and we take a look back from a Reece Watt's perspective, starting with the exterior cameras. As we have the replay getting underway here, this was Reece Watt had a poor launch off the line and battling side by side there, where I think that may have been Marco Benatelli he was in contact with, and the two of them getting hooked together as Watt and Benatelli just did not want to give up the space to one another, and that explains what happened to Reece Watt. And as the rest of the field made the way on through, well, that was the main incident. We take a look back from Marcello Reales' perspective as he came into this incident. We ride on board with the VRGT Racing Team Honda Civic Type R. Now you can see on the left of your picture Watt and Benatelli coming together. Reales comes into the scene the instant, has to slam on the brakes there, avoids any major contact, so everybody mostly reacting well to this. We also had one of the other VRGT machines, the Audi, they're not quite sure whose that was, but having to take a bit of evasive action. But for the most part, everybody having a relatively safe start to this race. And now as we make our way back to line pictures, we are on lap number 4 of 14 on the second half of that lap. And as we look in particular to Wayne Douglas, well, Douglas battling side by side with Michael Lees and trying to pick his way past the second place Pro driver. Here's the Pro behind him, he's got Matthew Addy up the inside, but Douglas there cuts off the nose. They make the way through 11 into 12, and as they roll the way in towards 13, line astern at the moment, albeit we have got a bit of battling further back, and this is Alex Meredith, who's been elbowed out by a plenty. I think that was almost 4 wide there coming through turn number 11 into 12, and well, in front of him now is Marco Benatelli. Also there's contact between Meredith and what is there, I do believe, Ian Manners, but they both survive it. Sam Smith is able to negotiate the 2 Brian drivers in the iRacing Esports. Elantra driver now trying to make a recovery as the other Elantra driver from the team from Avalon McCain is trying to get in behind Meredith as they make their way through 15. As they come in towards turn number 16, they'll all calm down for a brief moment, but everybody absolutely fired up here under the Texas sun. And as they make the way out towards turn number 17, it's all on the brakes here once again, but nobody able to find the moves currently, as now it's a bit of a patience game as they roll their way out of turn number 17 up towards turn 1 they go once again. But as they do further down the field, John Higgins Jr. having started from what was the pit lane of this race and electing to start from there, and I think the Sim Racing Collective driver now trying to make some more ground as he heads around the outside here at Chats Continentino. Well, albeit it's going to be a battle on the brakes here into turn 1. The Honda's got the better brakes, but Chats Continentino and the Velocitor's got the better line for defense, but they're still side by side on the run down 2, albeit Higgins Jr. here really trying to force the door open, and in the end it's going to come down to a right-hand understeer, and it will be Chats Continental who cannot continue this run into turn number 3. Just does not have the closure speed there coming into left-hand apex as they make the way on through the sweeps. John Higgins Jr. moves to P27, but he's got a long way to go to get himself back inside the top 10. He's gradually building momentum. But as we look from him to what is Martin Shirley, well, Shirley here in the battle for what is P14, P13 versus Jamie Doridor on the inside there. And the RD Sim Sport driver falling behind as they make their way through 12 into 13. I think this might all be part of a wider plan to try and cut back later on the lap. Lee Horn is on the back of this battle with Reece Watt getting close, and as they head in towards turn number 14, we jump on board here with the JW Motorsport driver in the Audi Sport Customer Racing Machine as he makes his way through 15 and up towards 16, and Watt right now running in P6 in the brown glass, making a good recovery thus far, keeping in mind, of course, he dropped a long way down the order at the start of the race, and now trying to get himself back into contention for a top 5 in the primes as a minimum, as he comes into turn number 17. He's got 1.5 second gap to Clibbins behind, so he'll feel comfortable there. Now he needs to go on the offensive as we make our way onto lap number 6 of 14. Still plenty of racing to come here at the Circuit of the Americas in race number 1. But what having to bide his time as everybody goes line astern up the hill this time around. And I think everybody now starting to calm down, albeit what says otherwise. He goes in very tight there on the inside of turn 1. And Lee Horn having the space on the outside. My goodness, well, if you didn't want a butt clenching moment there for Reese Watt, take a look up the inside. Well, I don't know what will cause a butt clenching moment for you, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing with turn 1, of course, is the fact it was designed intentionally that wide to the apex in order to present opportunities for drivers to lunge up the inside. And Reese Watt trying to make the most of that. But as they make their way through the chicane of turn 7 and 8, Lee Horn cognizant to it and therefore making his way back ahead in P15. But Reese Watt there absolutely leaving it to the last moment on the brakes, but could not make it count that time around. But signalling to Lee Horn the message, which is if you don't get a move on, I am coming through whether you like it or not. As they make their way through turn at number 11. Meanwhile, we look from them to your race leader of William Chadwick as the camera pans down from the central tower, which is a major feature of this circuit as they roll their way through 15 into 16. And the 192 driver, William Chadwick, feeling very comfortable here as he comes down through the left hand, albeit the Altus Esports driver, knowing that the pressure will continue to build from Gavin Garner as long as this race goes on. Although I think Gavin Garner feeling comfortable that P2 at the moment. The next gen racing Douglas Motorsport driver has got Mikey Doble for close company, and Doble, despite the amount of weight he's carrying in that car, is pushing hard, and right now his pace is some of the fastest we're seeing in the race. He's matching Gardner, a 10th faster than Chadwick on that previous lap, but nobody else matching this top 3 at the moment as they head up towards lap number 7. Meanwhile, looking further back, here's Andrea Romy looking around the outside versus Josh Millington for the final spot inside the overall top 10. And as they come into left-hand under brake, and Millington will defend hard. Romy will look for the cut back here. Can't quite find it on corner exit. Back return. Now has a bit more momentum down to 2. Millington comes across with a bit of netco contact and then physical contact between the cars. And it leads to what is then Millington being knocked about. Albeit as they make the way through the sweeping S. A wonderful camera angle. It gives you an idea of the sequence of direction change in quick order as all our drivers make their way through. Well, Romy holds the position as meanwhile more cars going through it, including Nick Clemens to iRacing Esports as he rolls his way on through it and bouncing over the curve. There was Benatelli in the rear of the picture, but as we look to the iRacing Esports driver making his way out to turn number 9, still behind Reese Watt. In fact, he's halved the gap. In fact, he's cut it by 2/3 to Reese Watt, and I think Reese Watt being frustrated by Lee Horn as they come out to turn number 10 and up towards 11. With the battling now starting to calm down, it's all about pitching your battles at the right time between drivers as they come through 11 into 12. More in the long line, we do look further back here to Adam Delmont, who's on the back of Alex Meredith, and will these two have become quite acquainted with one another over the last couple of laps. This battle between them, albeit for Alex Meredith, they're trying to hold on to P23, but I wonder if he might be better suited to let Delmont go and let Delmont bring the pair of them up to McCain, who's 1.8 seconds up the road. But of course, with it being an overall and a Prime Drivers Championship, as Delmont there sliding on the apex curve of 14, I think he feels as though he's squeezed a little bit too hard there, but just enough space to be able to survive. And as they make their way into 16, Meredith is not letting this go. He is defending this hard. And as they come through further behind, that's Jonathan Collins going sideways with John Higgins Jr. going around the outside, and Delmont gets to move down Meredith, and meanwhile John Higgins Jr. finds a way to steer clear of Collins, albeit he goes very wide there, and he's got to be careful that he does that too many times, and he will have the race director on the phone to him, albeit via the radio, to say you'll be looking at track warnings, and then it will be post-race penalties in terms of time. But as our drivers make the way up the hill, that's Daniel Fritz trying to have a move on Jonathan Collins into turn 1. Can't quite find it. The Whiskey Runners race with next gen blue driver, so they make the way out to 1 and down towards 2. But as they charge their way onto a new lap, meanwhile we look from them to what is your race leaders once again. And here is William Chadwick heading up towards turn number 11. Meanwhile, Gavin Garner under pressure from Mikey Doble as we look back from the rear of the next gen race from Douglas Motorsport. Audi, the number 11 car, which has been absolutely stoic in its driving all season, was he comes on through the left hand of turn number 13. Now he's going to demonstrate his resilience as Gardner. And I can tell you one thing, one of the friendliest drivers you'll meet down in the NXTGEN paddock, an absolutely wonderful chap to talk to, and out on circuit he may be a little bit quiet, but by comparison his driving speaks for him. Indeed, it speaks loudly, and this P2 position right now is one that he's working hard to defend as they make their way out to turn 16 in towards 17. But Mikey Doble there also with a championship to defend and looking to carry on that momentum. If he can pick up a P2, that'll be a huge score of points. They make the way up the start-finish straight in towards turn number 1. Chadwick sets a new personal best of 40.171. Fastest lap of the race is owned by Gavin Gone at 40.12. So nearest 100 for the moment as they make the way up the hill. And we have there's been a bit of an incident further down the road involving Sam Smith. We will try and get eyes on what that incident was very shortly. But right now, Gardner holding firm versus Mikey Doble. Meanwhile, Andrew Romy looking up the inside of a P9 versus Matthew Addy. This is for overall position. Romy goes in very late and just slots in behind Wayne Douglas by inches there, if that. And well, as they make the way in towards turn number 2, I think Wayne Douglas there will be on the one hand breathing a sigh of relief that he wasn't given rear contact by Romy, but at the same time might also be praising for the simple reason that was a very deft overtake there from the Italian. And as the 88 car weaves its way through turns 3 through to 6, Andrea Romy absolutely on point today. And this is the Andrea Romy from GRT East, what we saw in the first half of the season, really going back to life, particularly after the difficulties of Brands Hatch last week. And as they make their way down to turn number 10, meanwhile up the inside goes Josh Millington. On where's Matthew Addy, but Addy not fighting this too hard, or is he in fact no, he will stick it in to win it for the simple reason he also wants some overall championship points, and Millington being made to go the long way round to the inside of 13 if he can stay there. Addy has to give him the space. They are still side by side effective, albeit Addy now gets ahead but goes a bit deep. They're going out 13, contact between the two of them, elbows out racing. You love to see it as they make their way through 14 and 15, but in the end Millington will cost himself some time by running wide at 14 on the outside line. He'll cut it back, but Addy will be able to just position the car in the middle of the road, and that is the end of the story there in terms of that battle for a brief moment. But as they roll the way on through, we ride on board with Jamie Dory, and they've lost a drive from NXTGEN Race with Douglas Motorsport taking a peek, much like Isaac Doble there. And Isaac Doble really has been one to watch out for all the season in the Prime Class. He may be the youngest member of the Doble family racing on the grid, out of the brothers of Mikey, Joseph and Isaac. But the key thing is his maturity on circuit continues to astonish many as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 1. And Isaac Doble trying to get into the fight for P3 in the Prime Class. But as they all break the way, you can see there Isaac covering off what was the run from Dorian in return, also trying to make sure that Millington takes the defensive line as they come down through 2 and up towards 3. The line astern this quartet of drivers go as they make their way through the sweepers now, and as they roar their way on through, we can see them there in the background coming closer and closer, and behind them you've also got Martin Shirley and Reese Watt latching onto the back of this, so we can have a 6-way fight for the final spot of the top 10 as held by Matthew Addy currently, and Addy under major pressure to try and hold this all the way to the end with another 4 laps to go come the end of this one. And as we look back from the rear, the NXTGEN racing at yellow at Veloster will come through the left hand and up towards turn number 11. He goes once more, and everybody here fighting to come on through. But the problem is, will they be able to, as Addy there fighting with a bit of counter steer on the entrance to the apex, but keeps the car pointing the right way. Meanwhile, we have got a battle between Shelton and Michael Lees as Addy locks up under braking and goes overly deep there at turn number 13. It's going to release the cork in the bottle for Josh Millington, and Isaac Doble will go around the outside, albeit Addy's now going to defend as he's rejoined. Side by side in the battle for P3 in the Prime Class. Isaac Doble's going to commit to be on the inside to turn 16. This is good racing between the pair, and the number 65 Honda here trying to make sure that Addy can't come back, but as they exit the corner, it's too wide up towards 17. It's going to be Doble on the right, Addy on the left. They head onto the brakes here, both turning together, and as they clear the corner, it will be Doble who has the advantage, but now Addy will gradually build the speed in the Veloster. Meanwhile, Jamie Dory looks like it 3 wide. Isaac Doble covers him off and forces Dory as they make their way up the hill to go all the way to the inside, but Addy gets ahead there in the drag race. Jamie Dory in the middle of the road, taking a look all the way at the inside. There goes Reese Watt. What comes in absolutely blazing hot. He goes to the move, he gets it done there versus Martin Shirley. Addy slightly turned, and Isaac Doble gets back in, and look at Reese Watt, he's absolutely going for it here. The JW Motorsport drivers had enough of waiting, and as they make their way through 2 into 3, he's going to try and go outside to inside as they come sweeping on through. This is bold from Reese Watt. I don't think he's going to be able to get this done. If he is, this is going to be an overtake of the season contender, and as they come down through turn number 6, he has to back off there, but Reese Watt really putting the pressure onto Isaac Doble. He's not happy with the fact he's caught up behind the Doble Sim Racing Honda as they make the way in towards turn number 10. Onto the brakes they go, and he has to relent for now, but as they roll their way through the left-hander, Reese Watt definitely itching for more points, and in fact Isaac Doble they're having to back off, I believe, and with a bit of a slowdown penalty as they come through turn number 11, and Watt finally gets his man and gets his place. Now his title will be Matthew Addy. Meanwhile, we look from them to your race leaders in the Prime Class, and this is Matthew Cheverton versus Michael Lees, who have been battling one another quite closely over the last couple of laps. With everything happening further down the field, we can only finally make our way up to the front of the Prime field. And as they come through the right-hander in towards 16 the left, we can see Matthew Cheverton still holding on, albeit with time trickling away. I think the pressure is now becoming more and more Michael Lee's, but at the same time, we do need to keep in mind that Matthew Cheverton's still trying to make his way into the top 10 of the prime class in the championship stands. Michael Lee's, by comparison, the championship leader, and based on this one race result alone, he'll be extending his championship advantage over the likes of Isaac Doble and Matthew Addy. But as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 1 once again, for what will be the second to penultimate time, 3 laps to go, Matthew Cheverton holds the lead in the class right now. He's 5 seconds away from Andrew Pike, who's in P5 up the road, but these two battling for P6 overall as well, so there's a lot of pride on the line for the two prime drivers. But whilst we do have a brief lull in their battle, we do take a look back behind, and that is Michael Lees getting it all wrong through the S's, and Andrea Romy coming on through, and I think Lees deciding perhaps to let things go, and perhaps the GRT Esport drivers able to up Cheverton enough to give at least the opportunity to come on through, unless Lees's tyres are starting to go. This would be the point where we'd expect the Elantra drivers to start to struggle on that front tyre degradation compared to its peers. We do know the Elantra are very greedy with its tyre life in terms of if it's not managed, it will take the tyres apart quicker than most, and as Lees makes his way up towards turn number 11, this is a sign that something is about to come in terms of the weakness of the tyre life. As we look from the Next Gen Racing yellow driver to further up the field to Gavin Gardner. Well, Gardner still got Mikey Doble close behind, albeit the gap holding at half a second in this battle for P2. And as they roll their way into turn number 16, we do have a replay of what exactly happened to Sam Smith only moments ago. Well, this was on lap number 8, and Sam Smith making his way out to turn number 13, and there, as we saw the rejoin from Ian Manners, the two drivers coming together, oh goodness me, and a knot there from Adam Delman to the side of Sam Smith's car, and the iRacing Esports driver in the end having to be towed to the pits due to the damage sustained to the suspension rods. And what an unfortunate end to race number 1 for Sam Smith after what was a great time out for him last time out at Brands Hatch. But 2 laps to go, and as our drivers charge away on around, well, we still got plenty of battles to be decided, particularly further down the field, including the JW Motorsport car of Ian Manners here trying to pick his way past Alex Meredith for P9 in the prime class, P22 overall, as they come through the left hand there at turn what is number 3rd with turn number 10, and as they make their way up the hill. In fact, that's turn number 17 to correct ourselves. The JW Motorsport driver in the tow here, but not able to find his way past the Meredith Motorsport car. The Elantra there absolutely charging high up the hill. Now onto the brakes they go, and Manners goes all in on the brakes. Can he get it stopped in time? He can, and that's the power of the Honda's brakes. You can just see how late he can go and still get the car absolutely parked up there, and Ian Manners with a bold move gets it done for P22. But meanwhile, Isaac Doble further up the road has got it wrong there at turn 6 into 7, 8 and 9 he goes, and as he comes on through, it's all kicking off now in the fact that one Doble brother's lost it. Meanwhile, the other one is now starting to try and gain, as we can see it once again, Mikey Doble getting very close in the hunt for that P2 position versus Gavin Gardner. But as they make the way out of turns 14 and 15, we can see Mikey Doble flashing his lights there, trying to get into the head of Gavin Gardner, but Gardner having none of it. They've let William Chadwick go to 2.5 seconds now. As they make the way up towards turn number 17, it's going to come down to the battle for P2 at the end here. I think Chadwick has got this done and dusted. As white flag is out, one more lap to be turned in our first race of the day, and well, the battle is on for P2 overall as Gardner tries to hold off Mikey Doble, championship leader, and Gavin Gardner looking to try and pick up some major points here. Meanwhile, behind we do see Josh Millington trying to push hard for P9 overall versus Wayne Douglas as they make the way past the spectator grandstand as they roar their way up the start for the straight. And well, Michael Lee's 2 seconds up the road, but not close enough to battle with Matthew Cheverton. I think he's given up that battle for now, and he's focusing on taking those second place prime points and also a P8 overall, which is a huge achievement. But meanwhile, Douglas goes a bit deep and comes back across, and Millington there being knocked right out of the way. And well, we do encourage elbows out racing in touring car, but I think that's elbows and a fist to go with it from Douglas, and I think he might get a brief word down the paddock after this race. But as they make the way up through the S's here, Josh Millington will not be too pleased with that, and the Sim Racing Collective driver now just staying behind, and I think wary of what else could come. But as they make their way through 7 and 8 into 9, you can see the cars jumping there between the apex curves. That's how quickly they come down the drop, and as they roar their way through the left hand of turn number 11 onto the brakes, Millington goes. Can't quite find it at this time. He does get the better run off the corner, but Douglas then able to cover off the inside run in towards turn number 11. So no change between them at the moment as they come through the right hand as of turns 11, 12 and into 13. But as they come roaring on down We look back to Gavin Garner versus Mikey Doble, and well, as they come on through with turn number 16, there's no exchange between them, but as they roar their way up towards the final corner, this man emerges from the final corner in what has been a dominant drive from lights out to checker flag, and the Altus Esports driver William Chadwick will make it another win in a row, 4 in a row, as he takes the first win of the day here overall ahead of Gavin Garner P2, Mikey Doble P3, and it will be Joseph Doble P4, a double top 5 of the Doble brothers ahead of Andrew Pike P5. Matthew Cheverton will come to line to take another Prime win, P6 at Aztec Racing ahead of Andrew Romy, Michael Lee's run-up Prime P8 ahead of Wayne Douglas P9, and it'll be Josh Millington who completes the top 10 ahead of Jamie Dorey, with Matthew Addy completing at your Prime podium, P3 in class, P12 overall. Reese Watt recovering to P13 in the great recovery drive, and as more of our drivers make the way to the timing line, we do have some still making the way on through and around, including Paolo Maniti, who just made his way past Adam Delmont, but heading across the timeline currently Daniel Fritz there, P23 ahead of Alex Meredith and Jonathan Collins, and their drag race to the checker flag, and Costa Chats Continental and battle for P27 for some time will take the position in the end there in the number 28 Veloster ahead of Paolo Maniti, who comes on through for GRT Esports to finish P28, and then about 9 seconds behind him will be Adam Delmont with James Manskas out a lap down, finishing in between them, and Adam Delmont there will be your last lead lap finisher, P29, as he comes out of the final corner and takes the position. A difficult race for Adam Delmont, but meanwhile for some other drivers it was not a difficult race, and well, from one Honda driver to another, William Chadwick absolutely on fiery form, and the 192 driver for Altus Esports carrying on from where he left off in the County of Kent in the United Kingdom last week. Meanwhile for Gavin Gardner, well, he has got a huge accolade in his pocket now, which is he was able to hold off the charge of Mikey Doble for P2. Doble's P3, to be fair, an absolutely phenomenal achievement given the success ballast, but then looking at this man, Matthew Cheverton, what a continued run of form, and we were wondering whether it could have been a one-off at Brands Hatch, but it looks like the Aztec Racing driver is here to stay in the second half of the season, and the 390 Civic makes it a third win in 4 races ahead of Michael Lees, who battled him hard, but I think in the end Lees may have taken too much life out of those front tyres and had to relinquish that battle and focus on P2 in the Prime class, but still we've got plenty more racing to come, and Reese Watt, the Audi RS3 driver who cannot get a break, pole sitter in the Prime class, fell down the order after turn number 1, recovers to P13, and I would imagine that we've got plenty more to expect from the number 32 driver when we go into race number 2. That's our first race of the day, ladies and gentlemen. As we do look to the scenic view, let's take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. William Chadwick taking the win then in our first race of the day in round 7 of the NXTGEN Season 3, sponsored by Douglas Motorsport, and a win by almost 3 seconds over NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport's Gavin Gardner. Mikey Doble rounded off the overall podium there for Doble Sim Racing ahead of brother Joseph Doble for the same team. The gap between them 4 seconds at the checker flag, and then Andrew Pike completing the top 5 there for the Sim Racing Collective, and a brilliant drive to P5, albeit I think he would have felt he could have perhaps been in contention for the podium, but he'll work from that position. Matthew Cheverton at P6, another Pro-Am win in his hands for Aztec Racing. 1 second clear in the end of Andrew Romy for GRT Esport, who put on an absolutely brilliant drive to P7, having fallen outside of the top 10 on the opening lap. And then Michael Lees, Prime Championship leader, 2nd place in the Prime class and 8th place overall. The NXTGEN Racing Yellow driver won't mind that at all. He'll take those points very happily into race number 2, with Wayne Douglas for NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport, elbows out racing, fend off Josh Millington to the line there, with the Sim Racing Collective drive finish off your top 10. Jamie Dorey P11 for NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport, and therefore the best of the rest ahead of Matthew Addy P12 overall, but for the NXTGEN Racing Yellow driver, more importantly for him, 3rd place in the Prime class and a great drive to a podium finish. Ahead of Reese Watt, the JB Motorsport driver, who was inching closer and closer towards the end, but finished 2.5 seconds behind when all was said and done. And then Martin Shirley for RD Simsport and NXTGEN Racing Years Lee Horn completing your top 15. Nick Clemens P16 for iRacing Esports, fighting with Lee Horn to the end, but couldn't quite find a way through. And as we look further down towards the end of the top 20, Isaac Doble P17 there for Doble Sim Racing, and was a P7 in class, but he won't be too dismayed at that. It's something to work from. And then Marco Benatelli for GRT Esports ahead of NXTGEN Racing Blue, Paul Scott, and iRacing Esports Alan McCain completing your top top 20. Outside the top 20, John Higgins Jr., P21 for the Sim Racing Collective, having started from the pit lane and made his way to P21. A good start to today. Head of JW Motorsports, Ian Manners, with Daniel Fritz Whiskey Runners racing with NXTGEN Racing Blue, finishing ahead of Alex Meredith from Meredith Motorsport, and VRGT Racing Teams at Marcello Reles. Costa Chats Continental, P26 there. A difficult race for the number 28 driver, but still plenty more to come. Then Paolo Maniti and Adam Delmont completing the run to P27 and P28 respectively, with Jonathan Collins, your last lead lap finisher, P29 there for NXTGEN Racing Blue. In the P30, a lap down in the end. The first of the drivers who finished at least a lap down. James Vasquez-Gal for Aztec Racing. Head of Mark Sykes, P31 for NXTGEN Racing Blue. And Sam J. Smith for iRacing Esports who finished 5 laps down. And then Philip Garside, 9 laps down, will be classified as a did not finish. And that will be your final finisher of Philip Garside, P33. And out of 33 drivers, 32 classified as finishers in the race. That was our first race of the day, ladies and gentlemen, and we've still got another 2 to come. And indeed, we'll be back in approximately 7 to 8 minutes' time for the build-up to race number 2. It was tight, it was tense, there was plenty of batting in our first race of the day here in Texas, but who is going to be able to carry on doing the Texas two-step and dance their way to glory underneath the Austin sunshine? We'll find out then, but until then, don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss the next race of the day. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we return then for our second race of the day. Race 2 of 3 here at the Circuit of the Americas. And so far in the state of Texas, we've seen it's been tough, it's been tricky, but there have been some rising stars and also some stars of old who have shown just how well they've mastered the Circuit of the Americas. And as we get set for another 14-lap race coming up very shortly, well, let's do a quick recap of what happened in race number 1. And in particular, we did see drivers such as Marcello Rez for VRGT Racing Team, amongst others, have a difficult run into turn number 1 after what was a major coming together, but in particular, Reese Watt and it was Marco Benatelli having a bit of a disagreement under braking, and that triggered off a chain reaction, which saw them, plus Marcello Rez, fall down the order. But meanwhile, whilst they fell, other drivers were able to rise, and perhaps the most notable one in the Pro-Am class, winner twice last time out of Brands Hatch, Matthew Sheraton making another win with what was Michael Lease immediately behind him and harrying him all the way to the end. Meanwhile, in the Pro class, we saw Andrew Pike put on a great show to finish inside the top 5, but wasn't quite able to chase down Mikey Doble or indeed William Chadwick in the end. And in between Chadwick and Doble was Gavin Garner to complete the Pro podium, with Chadwick making it another win 4 in a row. But as we have just over 2 minutes before we make our way into our next race, or at least to the grid being set for race number 2, we do say hello to a good number of you who have joined us in the respective chats in between what was the pre-show and going into qualifying, and from qualifying into race number 1, and that does include but not limited to, I do believe, Luca Ivy in the YouTube chat. Also there to somebody who unfortunately I'm not quite good with Russian acrylic, so therefore I'm not going to pronounce your name, but good evening to you, sir. We also have their Arctic 2 Gaming that we say hello to, and also I believe we have what is there Hisham who was saying about nice dive with regards to the move made by Reese Watt earlier on, and then Ian Manners subsequently into turn number 1, and also Homper Sim Race who said dirty race in reference to the contact between Wayne Douglas and some of his rivals, and also to Benji Racing who said well done to both winners, and also John Meredith said well done Alex with Ben steering in reference to Alex Meredith's car definitely getting knocked about quite a bit in the first race of the day, and the steering not pointed the right way but still getting the car home. But as we look to Philip Garside, as we see here, the full send racing driver making his way through turn, what is it, turn number 13, unless I'm very much mistaken, or having a difficult first race of the day. The number 9 driver, and looking to try and now recover as he makes his way into race number 2, albeit he'll be starting all the way down in P33, but sometimes it's a good thing to start right at the back, as it does mean that you're going to be in the prime position to be able to avoid any open lap incidents, as he makes his way, rolls the velocity through turn number 16 there. I mean, just taking it nice and easy, and knowing that firstly, he's only got 40 seconds before he goes racing once again, but also secondly, perhaps he knows he's on camera right now and making sure that the sponsors on the car have every opportunity to be seen by the TV cameras. But as he powers his way on around there and running the Hoistingfeld livery as he charges up the hill, the full send racing driver here getting himself set to go once more. But meanwhile, as all of our drivers get themselves in position, Lee Horde doing very well in our first race of the day. The NXTGEN Racing Yellow driver battling for a prime top 10 and finding his way into our aforementioned top 10 of class. But as he gets ready to go in now, the Honda Civic Type R driver will be looking to try and make a return to the top 5. It's been some time since we've seen him there. We know that Lee Horde may not be the fastest, but he's got the highest spirits that he carries from race to race and round to round. And well, he ended season 2 on a high. Can he carry on that way towards the end of season 3? Well, that and more we're about to find out, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for race number 2. And as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our second race of the day. William Chadwick takes pole position once again there for Altus Esports, joined by Gavin Garner for NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport. Behind them, it's Mikey Doble for Double Sim Racing and his brother and teammate Joseph Doble, who line up on the second row, with the third row of the grid going to Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective, and Aztec Racing's Matthew Sheraton starting P6. Row number 4 goes to Andrea Romy for GRT Esport, joined by Michael Lees for NXTGEN Racing Yellow, with Wayne Douglas for NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport starting P9 in the 5th row, and Josh Millington completing your top 10. Behind them on row number 6 is Jamie Dory and Matthew Addy, followed up by the partnering of Reese Watt and Martin Shirley on row number 7. Keep your eyes out for Watt, he's going to be charging through the field. Lee Horde and Nick Clemens start on your 8th row, followed up by Isaac Doe and Marco Benatelli on row number 9, and then the top 20 is completed on row 10 by Paul Scott and Alan McCain. Row number 11 goes to John Higgins Jr. and Ian Manners, with row 12 being contested by Daniel Fritz and Alex Meredith. Now on row number 13, it's Marcello Rellis and Costa Transcontinentino, but we're going to have to stop there, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the race, and as the lights get underway, it's 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. and it's lights out and away we go. A very quick run on the light sequence there, and William Chadwick this time not being caught out on the launch as they make the way up the hill, and meanwhile in behind goes Gavin Garner, but as they come in towards the opening braking zone, Chadwick defends from one side to the other, a little bit of a bob and weave like a boxer, and as they come through in the left hand, well, meanwhile got a bit of contact there. Cheverton's being turned, and Cheverton goes round as all the drivers trying to clear him through. I'm not quite sure who was in the contact there, but we've got a further as they all come roaring down. More cars going wayward. Alex Meredith able to avoid all of the carnage, and what Alex Meredith's gained 11 places off the line was they roll the way on down and through the S sequence here. It is going to be a sensational start to the race for some, but for others it's been a disastrous start by comparison, as we do see all the cars weaving the way on down and through. Further contact there for Ian Manners and what was Costachat's Constantino, as we've also got Paul Scott off the road there at turn 7 into 8. We're going to need a few replays to dissect what exactly has happened, but I think we are still going. There's no safety car currently as our drivers make the way out. We've got Andrew Romy pointing to the rear, the wrong direction at the rear of your picture there, and as they make the way through turn number 10 in towards 11, well, meanwhile we do look from Philip Garside up towards your race leader, William Chadwick, who's still got Gavin Garner, Joseph Doble behind, but as they roar their way through turns 14 and 15, long right-hander pair commences. Will Chadwick holding firm as they come up towards 16, but it looks though the top 10 is gradually setting down into an order, but meanwhile some other drivers here with huge opportunities, including Leon and Alex Meredith, and speaking to the two of them, they're going side by side as they come out of 15, heading to 16. It's going to be Horn on the inside of Meredith. Now Horn's got to be smart with this, and he decides to play it sensibly, which is to back out, because I think he knows he's got the pace to take on Meredith later on in the race, given that Elantra will lose his tyre life, and Meredith struggling there under heavy braking into 17. The car snaking, you'll notice he put the brakes down, that front end not wanting to settle, and after one lap they race on. But with lap one complete, it's Chadwick ahead of Gardner P2, followed by Doble. That's Joseph Doble P3, Andrew Pike P4, and Mikey Doble P5, Reese Watt P6, followed by Jamie Dory P7, with Dory between Reese Watt, your prime leader, and then at Pro-Am second place driver Michael Lease in P8, Isaac Doble P9, third place in the Pro class, and then we have Martin Shirley P10, Wayne Douglas best of the rest in P11 as they head up towards turns 3, 4, 5, 6 once again. But we've seen a huge shake-up in the order on the opening lap, and we will very shortly start to get some replays of what exactly happened. But as everybody makes their way on through the Serpentine sequence, you can see Matthew Addy there chasing after James Spanskis-Gow, who's gained 12 places at the start like Alex Meredith has. So Spanskis-Gow has gained massively from P30 on the grid to P18. This could be some huge points for Spanskis-Gow in a Pro-Am Championship that's been a bit of a struggle over the last couple of rounds, and he looks up the inside to defend there versus Matthew Addy. Addy's the faster driver, but Spanskis-Gow has proven he's got the defensive nuance to keep one of the fastest drivers in the class at bay, as meanwhile John Higgins Jr. gets very, very dicey under braking there into turn number 11, decides to put it all in full commitment, and Addy simply says, well, okay, I'll just go around the outside to the inside of you into turn 13, but Addy goes all in, and there's contact with Spanskis-Gow as they both try to navigate the way through. Behind them now is Matthew Cheverton as well, as they go 3 wide into turn 14. Oh my goodness, as they come through the right hander, Addy's been elbowed all the way to the outside. They all somehow stay on circuit. Well, I don't know how they managed to do it, but then there's contact between Adam Delman and what was Matthew Addy's car, and Delman's lost his front bumper, and Addy there wobbling to the side as they make their way back up to speed. But for the most part there, they kept it clean as best they possibly could. Lee Horns into the pit lane. I believe that may be due to damage on the car. Alternatively for a jump start, we're not quite sure, but meanwhile James Spanskis-Gow here is proved to be a proverbial cork in the bottle. He is keeping everybody behind at the moment as they make the way out the hill, and for him it's P6 of the Pro class, which he wants to covet into a result. And as they make the way to turn number 1, well, they stay as they are for now, but as they roar the way through turn number 3, I wonder how long it'll be before we potentially see Spanskis-Gow and Cheverton exchange places, given the fact the two teammates will not want to hold one another up. But as they come through 3, 4, 5, 6 now, it looks as though they're going to stay as they are for a brief moment as we ride on board here from Sam Case's UK Next Gen Racing Yellow Machine of Matthew Addy as he comes through turns 5 and 6, and as he gets close to the back there, John Higgins goes very wide onto the grass, catches the car just in time, but there I think just carrying a bit too much speed and getting a bit over eager as it's going to be 3 wide in front of him. Oh, surely he's not going to make it 4 wide under braking here into turn number 10. I mean, there's 3, there's 4 wide, and then there's crazy, and we know Matthew Addy's not one to go for crazy as they make the way way towards turn number 11. Onto the brakes they go. McCain versus Delmont here, the two pros battling out in front of Addy. And well, Delmont getting his elbows out here, and I think we're seeing a very different side to Delmont today, which is full commitment to elbows out racing. And in return, McCain on the inside there, but beaches the car on the apex curve and has to slow it as they make the way out of 14, well, out 13 into 14 now. Addy on the inside here, and well, McCain trying to come across, trying to squeeze Addy as much as possible. Comes across the end, and Addy has to back off with Paul Scott immediately behind. And as they make the way out to 15 in towards 16, this battle back and forth here, and then just battling to be inside the top 20. You think they're battling for the win of this race as they make the way out towards turn number 17. But looking from them up towards what is the P4 battle here between Andrew Pike and Mikey Doble. Mikey Doble involved in that open lap incident with Matthew Sheraton, as we understand it. We will need to take a look back at that very shortly, but the key point here is that Pike is having to do everything he can to keep Doble at bay as they make the way through turn number 2 and in towards 3. Pike puts the car in the middle row. Mikey Doble trying to open the corners up as much as possible, and I think here it is going one way only, which is this will be a battle that will either last the whole race or Doble will find his way past his target in the end. But as they make the way up through turn 7 and 8 here behind Reswap closing, but meanwhile at the front of the field we can see that I believe serving a slowdown penalty was William Chadwick, as we do now have Gavin Gardner and Joseph Doble coming through to make it 1-2 as they head in towards turn number 11. But as they come through the right-hander, well, we can see Chadwick now has a bit of a battle in his hands with Gardner running a bit of success ballast to the car. Doble running more ballast by comparison. So Gardner arguably is in one of the stronger cars in this show, albeit Chadwick does have that pace, that outright pace in the Honda. But the point is he'll have to do it all on the brakes, given how strong the Audi is on the straights. And the same for Joseph Doble, in the fact he's got a car that's all about the corners and the braking zones, but not the acceleration zones, as they make the way towards turn number 16. But as they charge the way on through, we do have an opportunity to take a look back at what happened at the start of the race, and in particular what happened to Matthew Sheraton in the run out of turn number 1. So this was at the race start as things got underway. Now we'll see Marcello Rennes have to take evasive action from a slow start in Daniel Fritz, but we then look up the road to Mikey Doble as he made his way up the hill. Now keep your eyes on Sheraton on the right of the picture initially, under braking. Michael Lees goes in very hot there. Doble has to essentially navigate his way through being caught up, and Sheraton there just getting caught on the front bumper of Mikey Doble's car, and Doble had nowhere to go, but then everybody coming down into the scene. The incident, Addy being turned around on the front of what was the RD Simsport machine of Martin Shirley, but gets it back together. Sheraton does recover, and then we did see what was, I believe, Paolo Maniti and Andrea Romy coming together, and the GRT eSport pair having a difficult start to this race. But as we return to your live pictures now, that was the incident on the open lap. We won't stay away from the live action for too long because it is all continuing to unfold, and we'll speak of the two drivers here unfolding the battle for P23. It's Jonathan Collins versus Spencer Gal. And Spencer Gale trying to fight his way through. In fact, he's just had an off at turn number 1 and is now trying to recover his way back into the race as they make the way out through turns 5 and 6. They've got Mark Sykes in front with an Audi that has seen better days. The RS3 from NXTGEN Racing there with its bonnet hanging up slightly. And as they make the way out to turn number 9, things will calm down for a brief moment, but further behind, well, we have Lee Horn here chasing after Ian Manners and Chats Continental as they come out to the left-hander and turn number 9 up towards 10. And Horn itching for a potential opportunity here to pass, having lost 13 places at the start of this race, given all the incidents that have played out. But start there right now, can't find his way on through. And Manners seemingly starting to push away as they head through turn number 11. And through the right and up towards turn number 13. They stay as they are for the moment. Chats Constantine going for one of his season best performances here, P26 overall, and it'll mean a lot to him if he's able to hold off Manners and Horn. But albeit it does look as though it's going to be all about defending for the remainder of this race, as Horn getting close to the back of Manners as they come through 14 and 15. But from there, back up to the battle for P2. It's Chadwick on the inside here, and Joseph Doble as they come through turn number 1, and late run of the brakes of Chadwick. And look at Joseph Doble here trying to come back as they make the way down through turn number 2 into 3. The Doble Sim Racing driver looks around outside to inside, can't quite find it, so he tucks back in behind as they come on through the serpentine sequence. And well, this may work out in the Doble Sim Racing driver's favour, in the fact he'll now have Chadwick having to try and charge after Gardner. And the problem is, of course, with Chadwick having to chase down Garner. He'll have to do it with some rather late braking, and well, if the two drivers take a lot of time out while they battle for the lead, Joseph Doble may be able to scoop up both places in quick succession and sneak the win to his hands either way. But as they make the way out, 7% up towards 11, Andrew Pike's 1.5 seconds behind. So this battle for the win between these three drivers in isolation. But if they do start to take time off one another, it wouldn't surprise me if we see Pike and also Mikey Doble get into the fight as they come through turn number 13 on the 6th time of asking. Apparent up towards 14 and 15. Joseph Doble now starting to fall back slightly the gap, standing at 5.5 seconds. They roll the way through the double apex right-hander up towards turn number 16. But I think these drivers right now all just embedded in and trying to see where they fit into this sequence. But meanwhile, further back, Matthew Addy, well, the number one driver here in P20 at the moment, and what is P7 of the Pro class. Looking on the inside of McCain, going all in on the inside there, turn 14. McCain turned sideways slightly. Now, was that contact, or was it just McCain getting it wrong? I think there was a bit of physical and netcode contact front into the mix there. But meanwhile, Paul Scott creeping in behind, and Addy sent to the runoff area there, as Scott gives him a brief tap on the rear, and he goes deep, and as he gets the car stopped just in time, Paul Scott backs off initially, but now looks up the inside into 17, but decides to not go for it in the end. I think recognising the fact it would be a push to pass assisted move, and as they come out to 17 up towards turn of 1, they make their way onto lap number 7, and as they do, well, meanwhile Matthew Sheraton already onto that lap, having to defend here versus Wayne Douglas, and Sheraton's just made the move on Wayne Douglas as they come through the left-hander in towards turn of 1 right now. The Aztec Racing driver here still pushing on as much as he possibly can and trying to recover his way into this race, and his target will be P13 at best, for the simple reason that is the minimum reverse grid position, as we do see Wayne Douglas's velocity there missing the front bumper, and as they come through turns 5 into 6, Douglas all over the back of Sheraton, but getting too close there for comfort, having to lift off the car, but in return getting a considerable oversteer there as he did so, and now staying at where he is in P16 for the time. But as they head up towards turn number 10, meanwhile just behind them Adam Delmont closing up behind John Higgins Jr. Again, gap is 8 tenths here as they make their way through turn number 10 up towards 11. But these guys both are trying to make a recovery drive here after difficult starts to their day in race number 1. Race number 2 is all about redemption, and particularly for Adam Delmont, who started P28. He's already gained 10 places to P18, but as he heads up towards turn number 13, I think he's got his sights set on a few more places as he makes his way up towards the end of this lap. But from Delmont, we do look all the way up to Isaac Doble, and Isaac Doble in P9. He's found his way past Martin Shirley quite recently, despite an off-track, and with the Doble Sim Racing driver hold on to P9 overall right now, and P3 in the class. But behind there, you can see Alex Meredith. He's currently P11 and trying to get in the hunt for a podium spot in the prime class, as we jump aboard here with the number 44 Elantra as it heads up the hill, and Millington right behind at the moment, trying to look for the move. As you can see there, Shirley got as late as possible, and we're going to see Millington on the inside. They come through, but there it was a very, very late move from what was Martin Shirley, and Meredith tucks in here, but I think it'd be wiser just to back off and let this play out, because they come through 2 and into 3. I wouldn't be surprised here if we do see things get a little bit more tetchy between the trio in front very shortly, given the fact I think both Millington and also what is Shirley are very eager to make headway past Isaac Doble. But as they come out to turn 6 through the chicane, 7 and 8 onto the brakes at 9, you can see there the 3 Hondas and then the 1 Elantra, the differences in characteristics. Meredith getting in very close before the braking zone, then the Honda's just able to extract so much under the retardation, and as they come out of 10 into 11, well, now Doble having to defend here, as meanwhile Meredith looks up the inside. There's contact between the two of them, it's a small tab, but as they make their way through, Meredith having to work it on around. As he heads in towards turn number 13, it's all going to be now about the battle around the outside here, and Meredith's all got on his inside. Where's Marcello Reales, the VRGT Racing Team driver, now trying to get into P12 as they head onto the brakes for turn 14. Through the right hand they go. Well, Alex Meredith not trying to mix it up with the best on the grid, but at the same time I think recognising now perhaps it's not worth it, given the fact he's only starting to fall backwards towards other drivers rather than going forwards. And with there, what is Reales looking up the inside and trying to force the move at turn 16. There's contact, they make the way out the corner, and well, Reales on the inside still, but backs off there under braking into 17, recognising the contact as they make the way to the next lap. But Isaac Doble falling away from Martin Shirley, and as they make the way to lap number 9, and we've had to change the leader off screen. We'll take a look back at that very shortly. But Isaac Doble hit under pressure from Millington, and we saw Shirley go for a very late dive under braking into turn 1. They go to the brakes this time. Doble covers off the inside as much as he can. Millington turns in and finds the rear quarter panel of the Doble Sim Racing 65 Honda, and as they make their way through turn number 2, Isaac Doble holds on to the position. whilst all this has been playing out. Meanwhile, we've had Gavin Garner fall from the lead of this race. He's in P2, tucked in behind William Chadwick, and meanwhile, Joseph Doble over the back. The battle for the lead continues to rage on at least the top three. Joseph Doble on the inside. It's a very late nudge on the brakes there. Garner's still on the outside to inside into turn number 11. Side by side with the braking they go. And as they come through the right-hander, well, Garner cuts it back to the inside, defends it well, but Joseph Doble now says two can do this. And as he goes outside to, well, it's inside to outside through 12 into 13. Fantastic racing between these two right now. I think at some point something's got to give here, and what I think it may be the outside runner turn 14-15, which will keep Garner on at P3 rather than P2 as they roll the way on out and down towards turn 16 they go. But a brilliant battle there, and Joseph Doe will finally pick it up P2 as Gavin Garner has to wait his turn to try and come back at him. But meanwhile, how was the move made for the lead of the race by Chadwick? Here is a replay of exactly what happened. And this was at the start of lap number 9. Onto the brakes here. Chadwick on the inside. We've seen many a Honda driver do this today. And Will Garner there not able to anticipate it. And the Altus Esports driver making it happen. And that set up the battle between Joseph Doble and Gavin Gardner, which we then subsequently watched play out on our screens. But it's not over yet as we return to live pictures here. Now Joseph Doble coming off the inside there versus Gavin Gardner. And the next-gen race with Douglas Motorsport driver just has not got the brakes to be able to leverage that inside line compared to the Hondas. Meanwhile, further back, we look to Josh Millington battling with the younger member of the Doble family of Isaac Doble. As Meredith on the inside there, contact with Josh Millington, and well, for Meredith, I think he just needs to back it off here, and not because of causing an incident, but for the simple reason he's only got Nick Clemens 4 seconds away, and what is looking to be a minimum of a P4 in the prime class, and a guaranteed reverse grid position of P13. Should the number 13 be drawn, he will not want to lose any more place, and that's Marco Benatelli behind him, who is a lap down in P32. So Meredith does not have to worry about that. But I think Alex Meredith here will be now thinking about the bigger picture in race number 3 as they make their way up towards turn number 10. As they come down onto the brakes, Nick Clemens is pushing on and pushing on hard with Matthew Sheraton also for company behind. As they come out of turn number 10 and up towards 11, well, for Clemens, it's all been about keeping those consistent runs inside the top 10 of the prime class and inside the top 20 overall. Meanwhile, for Matthew Sheraton, where it's going to be a different position compared to what we've seen him at the start of today, taking the win in race number 1. But he's recovered to P6 in class P15 all road so far, and he's still trying to make a bit more ground, albeit Wayne Douglas behind may have something to say about that, given the fact that Douglas Motorsport next-gen racing driver eager to make a bit more headway as well. But I have to wait to see how this trio of drivers all settle the differences. But as they come down in towards turn number 16, meanwhile, in the battle for P20, this is between Paul Scott and Matthew Addy. And they're also fighting for P7 in the prime class, with Paul Scott holding the lead position. Well, it's been some time since we've seen these two battle on circuit, but here they are, and as they make the way towards turn number 17 on the brakes, so you can see the difference in the approach to the corner there. Paul Scott very conservative under braking, Addy almost slinging the car under braking into turn 17, and the velocity there having a bit more natural rotation potentially, but in return, by going that deep in the corner, he's cost himself 4 tenths of a second as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 1, and Paul Scott being given a nice comfortable lifeline there as they head through the opening hairpin. But from then we do look back up to your race leaders here, and this is Chadwick ahead of Joseph Doble, and on the brakes of the Doble Sim Racing driver will feel as though now he's starting to extract an advantage over Gavin Gardner, and as they come through the right-hander of turn number 11 behind, Mikey Doble is now starting to inch closer to the top 3. I think he won't mind picking up a P4, it won't be a podium spot, but still it's going to be some major points, and he'll keep himself well up there in terms of the championship lead. He comes out to turn number 13, towards 14 and 15 he goes, with Andrew Pike directly behind, and then we do have your prime leader here of Reese Watt, and well, I just want to say this now, we're not giving Reese Watt too much camera time, I think, because our camera director doesn't want to give the commentator or the broadcaster's curse to Reese Watt, given his misfortune over this round and the last round so far, but the JW Motorsport driver, touch wood, on course to potentially take a win in the prime class here in the second race of the day, albeit with Jamie Dory and Michael Lees behind. Well, Lees in particular would love to say something about that, given that Lees would take that win and with it extend his championship advantage even further so. But even if Reese Watt takes the win in this race, it'll only be a small dent, but it won't be major in terms of the advantage that Lees will be taken away from today if race 3 also goes well for him. And as they come up through turn number 1 and up towards turn number 2, the drivers right now all trying to fathom an opportunity on one another. Meanwhile, in the battle to be inside the top 10, this is Isaac Doble versus Josh Millington, and meanwhile, much Marcelo Reales, the Argentine, getting involved in this battle as we jump on board with the number 738 car. And the VRGT Racing Team driver here, very eager to make some progress versus Millington of his own. But as they roll the way into turn number 4, 5 and 6 very quickly, you can see they're having to really wait at the moment as everybody in that line, they're having to negotiate the dirty air, minus what is at the front of this pack, the driver Martin Shirley, who's got the clear air all to himself. But as they exit turn number 9 and out towards turn number 10, on the brakes they go. And will Kenneth Reales find a way to pick off Millington with the moments remaining in this race as they head up towards turn number 11. But through the right hand they go, and as they exit, no wave at the moment for Reales, albeit he'll be trying to set up some sort of move on that final lap as we see that Isaac Doble taking a bit of a defensive line now, overcooks the brakes into turn number 13, and with that it's just going to give Millington some confidence. He's starting to get into the head of the Doble Sim Racing driver, but Reales really playing the role of the observer at the moment as they head on past where's the tower here as we look down onto the drivers, and as they come through we look further back to Wayne Douglas, who's still trying to chase down at Nick Clemens and Matthew Cheverton. Clemens has got ahead of Douglas on this lap. At the start of this lap, he made the move into turn number 1. But as the drivers make the way in to turn number 16, well, they stay as they are for now, albeit there's still a bit more time left to settle the differences between them. And further on back, we do have a bit of a battle brewing. In fact, just up the road, Millington versus Isaac Doble, now going to a crescendo here for P10, as it will be Millington on the inside into turn 1, Isaac Doble on the outside. Onto the brakes they go. Marcelo Reales thinks about also getting involved here. It's the battle of the 3 Hondas, and well, Isaac Doble, they're made to go a bit wide. I think the contact from Reales' car will not have helped with that, but the key point here is that Josh Millington has found a way on through. Reales is trying to go outside to inside through 2 into 3. That will also give him the opportunity to come through, and now Alex Meredith is back on the hunt for a potential podium spot in the Prime class here as they make the way through turns 5 into 6, and Isaac Doble will do everything in his power to keep the Elantra at bay, but it's looking at roaring red hot there, and not just because of the colours on the car, but also I can imagine those front tyres and those front brakes have definitely taken a beating. But as Isaac Doble looks to defend here, with Meredith keeping him close and keeping him honest as they come out to 10 and up towards 11. No change at the moment, but Alex Meredith will be thinking about this, and I think he's got to weigh up, is it worth risking it here, given the fact that they're both on for good results, and also they will be inside where's that top 13 reverse grid as a minimum, presuming the number 13 is drawn, if not higher. And as they make the way on towards turns 14 and 15, they stay as they were for now, but definitely this battle continues to rise to a foray. And as they make the way towards the end of the penultimate lap, meanwhile your race leader of William Chadwick goes on to the final lap of this second race of the day. White flag is out, but behind him Joseph Doble continues to hold a 2/10 of a second advantage over Gavin Gardner in the battle for the runner-up spot overall, as Gardner there takes a little bit of a sneak peek. Joseph Doble reacts immediately. It's cat-like reflexes there for the number 11 driver. I think Gardner's just trying to test the waters here to see how much he can push Joseph Doble, and behind Mikey Doble not close enough to get involved, but we can see just off of him it is the fact that Mikey Doble has got the pressure of Pike and also Watt closing, albeit behind them Jamie Dory versus Michael Lees, and Dory sent to the runoff area there. Lees follows suit as well, and both drivers will get a slowdown for cutting the course, I believe based on the automated stewarding system, but a bit of a miscommunication there between the two NXTGEN Racing drivers, albeit from sister teams, but not the way they wanted that to go, and most definitely as they make the way around. In fact, I think Lees there lifted off to let Dory back on through, but I think they're both now going to stay in their positions and sort things out after the race. But meanwhile, looking from them, so Adam Delman, EMP18, still on the back of John Higgins Jr. as they head out to turn number 5 into 6. And this long line of cars here, running from P17 down to P21, is occupied by Matthew Addy, with Alan McCain and Paul Scott in the mix. But they're all trying to fight for what is the right to be in that midfield or the potential reverse grid positions, and everyone eager to make 1 or 2 more places. But as they come out of turn number 10 up towards 11, meanwhile we mustn't look from them to Wayne Douglas, who looks up the inside here, Nick Clemens, and gets the move done by the looks of things for what is P15. But from them heading to the final corner, where it was a brilliant start to the day with qualifying in race number 1, and with a perfect launch at the start of race number 2, he's never looked back as William Chadwick takes the win in the second race of the day, ahead of Joseph Doble P2, who holds off Gavin Gardner to the line for Doble Sim Racing, and Gavin Gardner P3 ahead of Mikey Doble with Andrew Pike P5, and then Reese Watt makes it a prime win that's been a long time coming for JW Motorsport. McCurtis has not continued to haunt him with Michael Lease, P7, second place to the Prime class. The Next Gen Racing Yellow Drive will take that one proudly. Jamie Dory, P8, Martin Shirley, P9, Josh Millington, P10, Marcello Reles, P11, and then Isaac Doble holds on for the final spot of the Prime podium, P12 overall, ahead of Alex Meredith in a close-knit battle between Matthew Sheraton. Recovers to P14 in the end, as we see a wheel rolling its way across the circuit. Not quite sure what's happened there. And then Wayne Douglas, P15, but drives yet to finish the race, still coming on around, including Lee Horn there, finishes P24 ahead of Ian Manners. And we do have Philip Garside making his way out of what is there, the final couple of quarters here. He'll shortly come through to finish P28 as he makes his way through the left-hander. And, well, a difficult race for him, much like race number 1, but still plenty more to come, as behind them we have Chats Continental and Daniel Fritz battling to the line, and it will be Fritz who just outruns Chats Continental there to P29, and then Paolo Maniti will be your final finisher on the lead lap as he makes his way there through turns 14 and 15, almost a lap down, albeit he will be given the right there by William Chadwick to finish the race under his own steam and do all 14 laps as Chadwick makes his way into the pit lane. But as Maniti comes on through there, the GRT eSport driver from Italy. It's been a difficult one, that contact with his teammate Andrea Romi at the start of the race, upsetting it for the both of them, but there's still one more race to go, but he's going to have to make his way through the field the hard way as he finishes P31. But what a second race of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And this man, Reese Watt, for him, I think right now JW Motorsport are not going to quite believe that he's been able to pull off the win, given all the bad luck that has seemed to confront him since the start of the second half of the season. But there he is, your prime winner ahead of Michael Lees, and Watt will be absolutely ecstatic with that as he makes his way to his pit box. But a fantastic second race of the day, and well, now the big question is, of course, ladies and gentlemen, what's going to be the reverse grid? But before we get to that, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. So as we can see, William Chadwick making it 2 out of 2 for Altus Esports with a successful launch off the line, albeit losing 2 places midway through the race, but fighting back through past Joseph Doble and Gavin Garner to take the win by 2 seconds over the Doble Sim Racing driver of Joseph Doble. Another podium for Joseph, and with that he'll be pleased as punch, as will Gavin Garner to make it P3, and the Next Gen Race of Douglas Motorsport driver definitely enjoying a good run of form in the Audi RS3 today. P4 for Mikey Doble for Doble Sim Racing, another top 5 finish, will carry on his championship lead quite nicely, with the Sim Racing Collective's Andrew Pike round off the top 5, ahead of Pro-Am winner Reese Watt for JW Motorsport, ahead of Michael Lease, runner-up in the Pro-Am class, P7 overall, and the Next Gen Racing Yellow Drive will not mind that at all. It's another plethora of points to his bank account. Head of Jamie Dory, P8 for Next Gen Race with Douglas Motorsport, and then Martin Shirley for RD Simsport, and Josh Millington for the Sim Racing Collective round off your top 10. And to be fair to Martin Shirley and Josh Millington, they had to battle the way through from the midpoint of the top 20 and having to use the brakes of the Honda as best they could, and definitely showing what the Honda's capabilities are like. Then in P11, Marcello Reles, best of the rest there for the RGT Racing Team, ahead of Isaac Doble, who rounded off the prime podium there of Watt, Lees and Doble for Doble Sim Racing, with Matthew Shepperton recovering to P13 ahead of Wayne Douglas, and then Nick Clemens round off your top 15. And with that also the top 5 of the Prime class. P60 for John Higgins Jr., a great drive when you do put into consideration he started down in what was P21. And as we look to the end of the top 20, Adam Delman, Alan McCain, Paul Scott and Matthew Addy, with P21 going to Jonathan Collins ahead of fellow Next Gen Racing Blue teammate Mark Sykes, the two of them battling in half of P21. And then Lee Horn at P23 in the final of the potential eligible positions for the reverse grid draw. And the Next Gen Racing Yellow driver will have his fingers crossed that he's on pole position for the third race of the day. Ian Manners P24 ahead of James Masquez-Gal, with Andrea Romy and Alex Meredith P26, P27, albeit we're not quite sure why Alex Meredith has been demoted to P27. Maybe a post-race automated penalty, so therefore we'll have to take a look at that after today's racing. We do apologise there for any confusion. And then Philip Garside P28 for Full Send Racing, ahead of the rest of the finishers of Costa Chats Continentino and Daniel Fritz to complete your top 30. Palamaniti P31 and the last finisher on the lead lap, and Marco Benatelli P32, finishing a lap down the end after the opening lap instant. 32 starters, 32 finishers, and well, we've still got one more race to come, ladies and gentlemen. For race 3 and 3 is going to be with us very shortly in approximately 7 to 8 minutes time. We return for the build-up. But before we do, there's just time, of course, to cut to the commentary booth for the one and only reverse grid draw. And as we do transition over, good evening to you all, and I hope you're all doing well and enjoying the racing action so far. And we're very pleased to have so many of you joining in today. And just take you through the remit, of course, we do have here the Next Gen Racing Lottery Bowl. In here are the lottery balls numbered from 6 through to 12. Very shortly I'll close my eyes and draw 2 of the balls after doing a shuffle on each draw, and then we'll add the numbers together, and that will be our reverse grid position for the day. Let's get the lottery underway. So as we draw our first number will be the number 7. So we've actually got quite a low number by looks of things today. So the highest we could get is P19 effectively. And as we now take our second draw with another shuffle. And our second number will be number 9, so it means it's a top 16 inversion, and that will in turn mean that Nick Clibbins is going to be your pole sitter for the final race of the day. It's one of our lowest numbers we've seen so far this season. In fact, I think it is our lowest number, so we are seeing some of those low numbers come through, but it's going to be interesting. Top 16 inversion, and who is going to come out on top in the third time of the story at the Texas circuit, the Circuit of the Americas. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes time for the build up to the race and more. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our final race of the day. Race 3 of 3 here in the state of Texas in the US of A at the Circuit of America's West layout. And well, as the sun is gradually settling in the distance and setting down low, it does mean that track temperature is starting to fall away. With an ambient temperature now at 23 degrees centigrade and on track 24 degrees centigrade, it is definitely starting to feel as though the circuit is getting cooler and cooler. But for our drivers, things getting hotter and hotter as the batting continues to rage on. And indeed, a number of our drivers now absolutely itching to go racing one last time. But in between the two races, we have had a little bit of drama down in the paddock with regards to a finishing position in race number 2. And, well, with regards to Alex Meredith in particular. And some of you have already spoke about it in the YouTube chat in particular and allow us to clarify the situation as we also say hello to... Excuse me. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen, we just had further information that race number 3 is going to be re-gridded as the grid is incorrect. So I believe we may actually need to take a brief pause and then come on back. But it does seem as though something has gone wrong with the setup for race number 3. So we will just have to wait and see. But it is a little bit of drama at the moment. But whilst we are waiting to go racing, what we do clarify is that the P16 or the top 16 reverse grid does stand in terms of how the drivers will line up on the grid. How the contention point was around Alex Meredith, who finished P13, in the fact that an automated iRacing penalty was applied to his race time after the race. A number of you in the YouTube chat in particular did notice that he was listed as finishing all the way down in P28. Now, to explain what happened, there was a corner cut towards the end of the final lap for Alex Meredith, I believe on the final corner, and he was not able to serve the automated slowdown given to him coming out of the final corner and onto the start-finish straight due to the short run to the timing line. And when you cross the finish line with a slowdown penalty is given to you by the automated stewarding system, the iRacing stewarding system then takes that penalty and multiplies it into the race results. And what it led to, from a slowdown penalty worth approximately 2 seconds of race time, it was multiplied to a grand penalty of in excess of 40 seconds. And that's why we suddenly saw Meredith drop all the way down the order. And, well, unfortunately, we do have to go with the way we set up the grid for our third race of the day. We have to do it based on the results taken over from the session in race number 2. So it will mean that Alex Meredith will be starting all the way down the order. And instead, it'll be John Higgins Jr. who gets promoted a position and starts P16. I agree, it's not ideal and it's unfortunate, but I do believe a protest will go in after the racing today, and I believe Alex Meredith will be given back his position from race number 2, but he will have to battle his way through for race number 3. That's my understanding of the rules, so we do apologise for the confusion there. But as we do get ready to go racing once again, we are just waiting to see what else happens as Matthew Addy keeps us entertained in the meantime with some hijinks out on circuit, albeit we do briefly lose him from the track there, and well, the grid still being set. In fact, we may have to step away again very briefly, ladies and gentlemen, but in the meantime, we do say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube chat who joined us towards the end of race number 2, including what was there, I do believe, Jeremy DeBova, an old stalwart of the GT3 Championship, indeed the early days of the Next Gen Racing GT3 Championship hosted on iRacing. And also we say hello there to Wasabi Ninja, I do believe that's Jonathan Collins, who checking in from the paddock in between races, and also to Medmo in the YouTube chat, who talking about me looking very happy in doing the lottery draw. Indeed, absolutely love doing the draw, and well, we get ready to go. And also say hello to Rob Sutherland there, cheering on Reese Watt and saying well done to him. But I believe we are just going to step away, ladies and gentlemen. A new race lobby is being formed, so we will be back again in approximately 4 to 5 minutes time for the proper build up to race number 2. We do apologise, but we'll see you very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We do apologise there for the delay. Unfortunately, to explain what exactly occurred, we were notified as the race was getting set and all of our drivers were making their way towards the grid with a couple of minutes to go. And the grid had been set incorrectly for race number 3, whereby we do believe only the top 13 had been inverted rather than the top 16 finishers as accredited by iRacing from race number 2. So therefore, we'd not had our top 16 inversion, which we were expecting to have, and we had to scrap the existing session and create a new iRacing session. But we have that now. We have our top 16 inversion, and we are all set and ready to go with only 2.5 minutes on the clock before our drivers make their way to the grid for a final race of today. Indeed, a bit unfortunate there, but these mistakes do happen, and sometimes they happen of their own accord. If you've been tuning and staying with us for some time since the early days of our championships, you'll know that every sort of a small technical hiccup can occur, and most recently you may remember the Proto GT3 Championship. We had to split the Spa Francorchamps round over 2 weeks due to technical difficulties beyond our control. But as it is race 3 time now, as Benji Racing appropriately says there in the YouTube chat, and with a popcorn emoji, and well, whilst popcorn may not necessarily be everybody's forte, we do recommend, if you haven't already got yourself a light snack, a nice cup of tea or a cool beverage, as it's getting a bit warmer in the summer right now, or at least in the Northern Hemisphere. To be respectful of the fact we do have a couple of drivers in the Southern Hemisphere also racing here while they're headed towards winter, then now's the time to do so, because you've not got long before we head to the grid for the final time today. And we'll all of our drivers absolutely itching to go on the charge. But just to confirm once again, it's a top 16 inversion where, due to Alex Meredith's post-race penalty applied at the end of race number 2, we will see John Higgins Jr. taking pole position in the end rather than Nick Clibbins. And Nick Clibbins, we started second on the grid. We've seen the majority of the field moved up a single position. It's unfortunate, but it will be resolved after the racing today in terms of how the result in race 2 will be accredited. But we are now moving forward from that, and as our drivers get ready to go, we do look to Matthew Shepperton here, the Aztec Racing driver, who after a great race number 1, a difficult race number 2, can he find a middle ground, or alternatively come away with another win in race number 3? That'll be the change that confronts him. But meanwhile, looking at from one driver who's really been a star in the second half of the season to one driver who's had a difficult second half of the season thus far, and that is Daniel Fritz, with the Whiskey Runners Racing with NXTGEN Racing Blue driver in the 31 car. Getting himself all set, and he'll be targeting a top 20 as a minimum and looking for another top 10 in the Prime class to keep his championship charge well and truly underway. But we are now only 15 seconds away from the transition to the grid. And as our drivers get themselves set, or who is going to be the one who masters these cooler conditions at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. And well, my instinct says we shouldn't predict anything, because with these reverse grid races, anything can happen in the run to turn number 1. And well, William Chadwick will know that best, in the fact he'll be starting P16 and looking to carve his way through to make it 3 wins out of 3, like he did at Brands Hatch last time out when he came through the field and made it into the top 10 in the space of 1 lap. But here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Our drivers make their way to the grid for the final race of today, and this is how they'll line up for race number 3. John Higgins Jr. and Nick Clibbins line up on your front row together, with Wayne Douglas and Matthew Shepperton behind on row number 2. Row 3 is occupied by Isaac Doble and Marcelo Reles, with Josh Millington and Martin Shirley taking to row number 4, and the top 10 completed on row 5 by Jamie Dory and Michael Lees. Reese White and Andrew Pike line up together on row number 6, followed up by Mikey Doble and Gavin Gardner on row number 7. And then Joseph Doble and William Chadwick will complete your top 8 rows there in the P16 version, with Adam Delman and Alan McCain on row number 9, P17 to P18. On completing the top 20, it's Paul Scott and Matthew Addy on the 10th row of the grid, with Jonathan Collins and Mark Sykes behind on row number 11. And then it will be Lee Horn and Ian Manners to complete your 12th row, followed up by James Vasquez-Gow and Andrea Romeo on row number 13. Alex Meredith and Philip Garside on row 14. Costa Chatscon and Antonu and Daniel Fritz on row 15. Paolo Maniti starts P31, and we've only got 31 drivers for this final race of the day. They're all set in position, and let's see the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for our final race of the day as Johnny Hughes Jr. gets a slow start of the line. Nick Clements launches well as they make their way up the hill, and as they charge up towards turn number 1, it's all going to be about who's bold on the brakes here and willing to dare to be cool on cold tyres and brakes. They make their way on through, and Clements there, and Higgins in contact. We see Wayne Douglas getting involved. It's 3 wide on the corner. There's been an incident off camera at the rear of the picture there. We're not going to be able to see it currently, but we will take a look back later on. And as they make their way through turns 2 and 3, it's relatively cool outside the top 3 and inside the top top 10. But meanwhile, Marcello Rella's absolutely on the offensive there, as we do see John Higgins Jr. get it rolled. Rella's being collected with him, and both drivers then make the way to the runoff area. But meanwhile, everybody now looking to rejoin. John Higgins Jr. having to do so around the outside as he rejoins onto turn number 6 with Andrew Pike behind. But as they make the way through turn number 9, well, it all started off at the front of the field for John Higgins Jr., but it's quickly gone down outside the top 10 as they make the way to breaking into turn number 10 for the first time of asking, and rolling on through Joseph Doble here, trying to keep William Chadwick at bay. But I think Chadwick going around the outside to inside into turn 11. Onto the brakes they go through the right-hander, and as they exit now, well, it's going to be Chadwick who holds firm in P9, and he's already held the deficit to the top portion of the field. As they come into turn number 13, everybody Constantina in under brake, and Lee Horn getting very feisty there, battling side by side with Paul Scott as they exit, and then Andrew Rowe and Matthew Addy behind, as it's going to be Robbie on the inside of Scott into 14. 3 wide they go in the rear of the pitch, and as they come on around, Lee Horn here just trying to keep himself out of danger as they come out of 15 and in towards 16, side by side of corner exit. Horn's going to be the inside into 16 onto the brakes, but the problem here is who's going to be the one to back out. Neither one wants to do so, and Lee Horn having to defend now into left-hander at turn 17 as Robbie holds wide there, but you see Paul Scott getting in, just missing the side panel of Robbie's car, and it's Lee Horn still holding on as they make the way out the hill, and Robbie's not too happy with this as they make the way out the hill. He wants to get on through, but Lee Horn defends as hard and fast as he can in the run up the hill on the inside, and as they head into the braking zone, we've got plenty of batting further up the road as well. We continue to watch this battle for Primo. Robbie going around the outside this time. All on the inside as we've got a car going around there, and I believe Josh Millington involved in an instant, and these two still going as they come through 1 into 2. It's the battle of the Pro versus the Pro here as they head through 2 into 3, and Horn not giving up, but in the end into turn number 3, Robbie has to back out as meanwhile Paul Scott and Alex Meredith coming side by side, and Alex Meredith has already gained 11 places since the start of this race. He's recovered to P16 from P27 on the grid. Well, if that's not testament to the fact he's not letting the demotion from the race number 2 results get to him, I'm not sure what is the fact that right now the youngster is absolutely focusing hard and fast on letting his racing do the talking. And as he goes up the inside of Paul Scott, it's another move. Meredith up to P7 in the Pro class, as meanwhile at the front of the field, it's Matthew Sheverton who leads this race. The Aztec Racing and overall in the Prime class as he makes his way on through at turn number 13 up towards 14. Well, there's been a bit of a story that's unfolded. We'll have to try and find out what exactly has happened to cause all this, but the surprise here is that Matthew Sheverton leading right now, and well, it's a top 4 of Pro-Ams with Isaac Doe and Nick Clemens and Reese-Watt behind, and then your first Pro is Josh Millington in P5 as they come on down, but meanwhile it's getting very feisty in the battle for what is their P7 between Chadwick and Joseph Doble. As they exit the corner, Joseph Doble switches back to the outside, Chadwick defends onto the racing line as they come through turn at number 17, through the left-hander they go, and on towards lap number 3 they charge. As they come across the timeline, meanwhile Michael Lees not being perturbed here by Andrew Pike being in front of him. Looking up the inside, you can see the Elantra just gradually gaining yardage as they make their way up the hill in towards turn number 1. Onto the brakes they go, and as they do, it's going to be Lees on the inside there. Meanwhile 3 wide behind between Meredith Scott and what is Romy, but then Alex Meredith backs out and loses the places she was trying to gain as they come down the hill, and as they make their way through turn number 2. Meanwhile, the battles up front are absolutely reaching their crescendo right now with Michael Lees in amongst the pack here. And we jump on board with the P9 driver in the 55 NXTGEN Racing yellow Elantra as the Hyundai driver heads through turns 7 and 8 and trying to pick up Joseph Doble. Now coming out to left-hand and up towards turn number 10 very shortly here. It's all going to be settling down into line as once more. Andrew Pike 9 steps back and not really close enough to get involved at the moment. But Lee's here just taking his time and knowing there's a lot of race to go. It may sound like a limited number of laps 14, but given the lap time around here, they do last long. And there's plenty of overtaking opportunities from lap to lap as all our drivers here gradually bring themselves to the apex of 13. But coming on out there, Lee's taking plenty of apex, going to get very aggressive in the early stage of the race, but this will cost him tyre life towards the end. It'll be of a cooler circuit now. He may be able to push the car a little bit more as they come through turn 15 in towards 16. The Elantra goes incredibly well, the cooler the average temperature is, and as they make their way into 16, he gets very close to the back of Joseph Doble. Can't quite find his way past the Honda Civic driver, but he's going to think about it here into 17, goes all in, onto the brakes they go, side by side. Lees gets the door open, as meanwhile Reese-Watt battling there with Josh Millington for P4, and as they make their way up the hill, where it is going to be Watt who leads the run up the hill in that battle for P4 back. as he defends the inside and onto the brakes they go, but as they do, Millington not giving up here, trying to go around the outside in the Honda, but as they clear the left-hander and down it towards turn number 2, Marcello Reales having moved all the way up to P6, and now just watch it on as Millington cuts back to the inside of 2 and what's made to wait. And well, for the number 32 driver, you can understand he wants to hold this position because he wants to go hunting down the win in the Prime class, and to do so, it's Primes in the top 3 spots right now. But as they come through turn number 6, he is going to have to be held back behind Millington, as meanwhile, we also do have a little bit further Andrew Romy, who's trying to make his way to P12 versus John Higgins Jr., as both of these drivers and very different fortunes at the start of this race. John Higgins Jr. dropping all the way down the order 11 places. Andrew Roy gaining 13 places, much like Alex Meredith's 11 places gain. Both drivers really making a great effort at the start in order to avoid being involved in all the hoo-ha in the turn number 1. And speaking of which, we've got a replay coming up very shortly of what exactly happened at the start of the race between a number of drivers, and here is the replay. Well, this was the run up the hill. We looked to Martin Shirley in particular for RD Simsport. Now, keeping in mind, he started just outside the top 10, I mean, just inside the top 10 on the brakes there. Oh, goodness me, Gavin Gardner being the driver who really triggered off the chain reaction. Oh, but we're not quite sure what happened to Gavin Gardner. That led to him spearing into the side of Shirley, but Shirley turned around, collecting Ian Manners. A lot of frustration there for a number of drivers. We take a look back from Gavin Gardner's perspective, and was he made his way up the hill. Keep your eyes on the pink NXTGEN Racer Douglas Motorsport Audi right at your picture, now on your left, turns in and gets scooped across the front there of, I believe that was the car of Andrew Pike. Well, Pike would have been minding his own business as Gardner turned in. Mikey Doble being collected there, all as part of the scene of the incident, and that explains part of the story. As we return to your live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of drivers losing out significantly, including Mikey Doble, who's down in P25, but where others have lost out, plenty more are gaining by comparison. And well, the battle right now, we are going to see, I think, some new names taken to the top steps, or at least on the podium of the overall and prime categories in this final race of the day. Albeit Joseph Doble here has got the pressure of Andrew Pike, and Pike still trying to pick his way through with some front aero damage on the front right side of the Honda Civic as he chases after the double sim racing Honda. And as they make the way up towards turn number 10, nobody really able to find an upper hand on one another, as we see Andrea Romy there taking a bit of a wide run out the corner. But we ride on board and look back from the rear of Isaac Doble, and the double sim racing driver here finding himself in a very rare position. It has been quite some time since we have seen an overall win go to a prime driver. The last driver was able to do it, you may remember in season 2, was at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, as done by Reswap with the reverse grid, benefiting the prime class quite considerably, but what had to defend absolutely hard and fast all the way over the race in race number 3 in Germany back then in season 2. But right now, Isaac Doble trying to become the second driver in NXTCC history to become a prime overall winner, and as he makes his way out of turn number 16 to 17, right now Matthew Sheraton right there with him. But I think these two both working towards a mutual goal, which is they want to fight one another at the end of the race and not let Josh Millington get involved. But you can't see Millington at the moment, but be rest assured he's only 1.5 tenths behind where's their Sheraton's car, and you'll see him following in the toe very shortly as they make the way up the hill. Doble defending here, made to go tight on the inside. Sheraton's going to look around the outside. Millington makes it 3 wide under braking. But Isaac Doble there gets them to all stack on top of one another. It's nice defending from Isaac Doble, and what it does now, it puts Sheraton in a position where he's under major pressure as they come on through. As we say hello there to Vortex Racing, certainly said who's cheering on JB Dory in the YouTube chat. But as we do see our top 10 make the way through, Michael Leese there goes wide, catches the car just in time to hold on to what is their P8. But as they all make the way on through at the serpentine sequence of corners, wonderful to see all the drivers charging on around. Well, meanwhile, here's Wayne Douglas in P11 still trying to catch up to the top 10. And as Michael Lees goes a bit wide there, coming out of 9, we see Marcello Reles there defending hard. Meanwhile, Joseph Doble on the inside, the 3 wide at apex approach. Michael Lees goes round the pair of them, and my goodness, the NXTGEN Racing yellow driver, no hesitation, just pulls the trigger on the move. And meanwhile, Joseph Doble and Andrew Pike now squaring off at apex. As meanwhile, we've got William Chadwick here looking around the outside of Reese White into turn 12-13. The Altus Esports driver here being made to work hard for this, and the Audi of Reese White is not giving in, and Watt does not want to lose any overall positions, given the fact that right now Sheraton and Doble are ahead. Well, Clemens and Lees have fallen way behind, and Nick Clemens on the off track has in fact dropped out of the top 3 of the prime class. So Reese Watt right now battling for the podium as a minimum, if not trying to go further and trying to go overall in the race in terms of the top 5. And as they make the way in towards turn number 17, William Chadwick here not being given it easy, and I think finding himself coming against some prime drivers who are not phased by the pace he's bringing to the table. They want their points just as much as everybody else. And as they make the way onto lap number 7, we come towards the end of the first half of this race as they head up the hill, and Chadwick looking up the inside this time. He's going to go on the brakes, and I think what's going to let this go. Meanwhile, it's Millington on the inside and Matthew Sheraton, and well, I think there Sheraton flashed his lights. He's not too pleased with the fact that Millington's had to be very forceful with the move, but sometimes that's how you've got to be in the final race of the day. And the Sim Racing Collective driver now moving up to P2, but now his next tyre will be Isaac Doble, and meanwhile Chadwick will be trying to close up to this pair as quickly as possible. But as they make the way on around, Michael East all over the back of Nick Clemens as they make the way on through the chicane, and Clemens under insurmountable pressure as we ride aboard and look back from the rear of the Audi RS3 iRace Esports 13 machine, albeit as they head into the braking zone for turn number 10. Things will calm down for a brief moment between these two. Albeit I would imagine that Michael Lees is trying to set himself up for the next run as they are effectively battling for P4. Lees goes on the inside. There's contact between the two on quarter apex. You can see that in the vibration of the camera. But as we look to the exterior cameras now, Lees going all the way around. He's done this a number of times. This is very bold from Lees, but can't quite get the car turned in. Instead, understeer takes control and makes him lose out as now Andrew Pike tries to get into the fight as the Sim Racing Collective Honda driver here in the 99 car looks to try and make the move into 16 from outside to inside, but in the end has to back off, and knowing there's not enough space and time to do it. But as they head through the left-hander, Andrew Romy getting close as well in the battle for P11 versus Wayne Douglas, albeit as they make the way towards the end of lap number 7 onto lap number 8. They stay as they are for now, but it is getting very tasty inside the top 10. Indeed, a lot of pro drivers here fighting amongst themselves, and this could really lead to a number of primes gaining some of their best overall finishes of the season. But speaking of that, we look to the very front of the field. Isaac Doble here under pressure from Josh Millington, as meanwhile Chadwick up the inside of Sheraton, who gets the move done for P3 at the rear of the picture. But Isaac Doble holding on for now, but Millington all on the back of him as they make the way on through turn 2 and in towards 3. Now going from left into right here. What does Isaac do? What does Isaac Doble do in this situation? Does he let the lead go and focus on leading the prime class only, or does he fight hard? Well, I think his instinct is going to say to you battle for everything, you battle for the win overall. And you can see that Chadwick is getting closer and closer already. And if Doble can keep Millington at bay, I think Chadwick will be forced into a two-way battle for that P2 position, and with Sheraton also closed up, plus also a free squad, Isaac Doble could get everybody behind him to fight if he times his braking right and parks the car in apex. But the problem with parking on apex is, if you don't get it right, you'll leave yourself incredibly vulnerable, so the drivers behind all catch up in quick succession. But as they come through turn number 13, Millington, they get very close to our camera as they make the way through the corner and in towards turn number 14, but Millington there trying to find a way to seize the inside. He can't quite do it at the moment, trying to find a cutback here and there as well, and Isaac Doble continue to thwart him as they make the way towards turn number 16. But meanwhile, Sheraton versus Reese, what that started to build up, and then Nick Clemens will battle in there with Andrew Pike and losing the position for P8, and he wants to get back into the mix as they make the way up towards turn at number 17. But all of our drivers here pushing as hard as they possibly can, and as they make the way onto another lap, here is Isaac Doble holding on to the lead of the race, albeit Millington right now following him in the middle of the road. Isaac Doble going all the way to the inside here. He knows he's got to defend this hard and fast, but with the opening corner being so wide on approach, an outside line just as good as an inside one. And as they come out of turn number 1, it's going to be Millington looking around the outside to the inside of 2. Doble tries to squeeze him, but there's not enough space to do so. And as they come through 2, Millington's now going to have the outside to 3. William Chadwick, they get involved as well. And as they come through the left into right here, who is going to be the bolder of the 2? It will be Millington, and Millington squeezes ahead as Isaac Doble drops to P2. And now Chadwick's all on the hunt here for the second place spot. As we jump on board with the Altus Esports 192, and as they come through, you can see that having to catch the steering wheel mid-air as they make the way out to the left-hander at turn number 9 in towards 10. Onto the brakes they all go. Matthew Sheraton behind 3 attempts. Here's the gap behind to the second place prime driver. So for Isaac Doble here, he knows he's in amongst the battle where he'll want Chadwick to stay behind, because otherwise Sheraton and Watt will have an opportunity to try and take the prime win. But as they head in towards turn number 13, Chadwick looks through it. He gets very bold. He gets very dicey. He goes all in the anchors. And as they make the way on through, Chadwick gets it done, albeit he's had to be very forceful to get it done. But sometimes you've got to get those elbows out, and as they make the way through turns 14 and 15, now Isaac Doble under pressure from Matthew Sheraton. That prime lead looking vulnerable here as they make the way up towards turn number 16. Chadwick's got now it's a 1 second gap to close down on Millington, but I think he'll do that rather rapidly. And as they make the way out towards 16, Doble having to look at his rear view mirrors constantly as Sheraton looks up the inside. He goes all in. He gets the car stopped, not without got contact between the two of them, and as they make the way out of the corner, the two Honda drivers here, side by side. Isaac Doble looking to pick up his first prime win of the season. Cheverton looking to make it 2 more wins here today in America. Reese Watt looking to make it back-to-back wins after his race to win. They go 3 wide up towards turn number 1. It's Watt on the inside, Cheverton in the middle. Isaac Doble backs off completely. He cuts it back but takes too much on the sausage curb. And as Watt holds the middle of the road, Cheverton comes down, looking to defend into turn number 2. But Watt's still there, and as they make the way towards 3, Watt's not going to back out. Here he goes when there's contact between the two of them. Watt backs off and Cheverton holds the position. There's further contact though as they come through. Isaac Doble looks down the outside as Watt onto the curb, and he connects with Isaac Doble, and they both go round. Isaac Doble gets the car onto the gravel, and as he does, Matthew Cheverton holds onto P3. But my goodness, you could not make up the drama there in regards to the drivers coming together, and with that Isaac Doble holds onto P2 in the prime class, but that was very near the mark as it was incredibly close racing. But Reese Watt, for all his effort, now drops down to P20 overall, P9 in the prime class, and Isaac Doble now has a bit of support in the form of brother Joseph as they make the way through turn number 12. As they come in towards the left-hander of 13, which gives us an opportunity to take a brief breather, and as we do, Michael Lee's now be looking at this. I think he's in the podium spots once again, and if he can pick off Isaac Doble and even go after Cheverton, albeit only 4 laps to go come the end of this one, it's going to be some huge points to be banked today for Michael Lees, and that championship lead will expand undoubtedly as they make their way down to turn number 16 once again. But rolling on through the left-hander and up towards 17 to complete the lap, we look back to Jamie Dory all over the back here of John Higgins Jr. and these two. Well, right now it's a battle of 2 of the season legends and veterans of the NXTGEN as they make the way through the final corner and onwards towards lap number 11 and 14, and with Dory all over the back of his rivals, they head up the hill. And as they continue to battle their way up through the gearboxes, well, I don't think there's going to be a move from Dory this time around, as we do see Daniel Fritz there on the inside, respecting the blue flags, just creeping along the start-finish straight, given the field is so close together. And right now, to put it in perspective, the top 19 separated by only 17 seconds. That is less than a second per car. That's how close the racing is. But meanwhile, we look here, that's Michael Lees getting it wrong as Isaac Doble defends, and Lees there drifting from side to side. He's trying to get the car to stop, but as they make the way on through, Lees will lose the position to Andrew Pike. We're not quite sure what started that. We can tell you that Michael Lees doing very well to catch the car, and Isaac Doble there holding on to P5 overall, P2 in the prime class, but behind Wayne Douglas now, thinking about going on the inside here of Nick Clemens into turn number 10, and as they come through left into right shortly, Douglas gets ahead, but Clemens turns him across the front, and Douglas made to look the wrong way as the car rolls onto the grass there, and the next generation Douglas Motorsport driver will not be too pleased with that whatsoever, as Alex Meredith also picks up P14 there and carries on his way. And for Wayne Douglas, it's all gone wrong in a very short space of time. But as they make the way all up through turn number 13, now we look up to John Higgins Jr., still fending off Jamie Dory as they make the way for the double out of 14 and 15. Nose to tail, these two, there's no stopping them as they roar their way on around. And will the Sim Racing Collective driver from what is there, the United Kingdom, doing everything to hold off his fellow countrymen, albeit as they head in towards turn at number 17. I think Dory's just trying to keep up the move on the final lap if he can't get it done right now. But just in front of Nick Clemens there, being barracked and under pressure from Lee Horn in the battle for P9 overall, P4 in the prime class. Neither driver has been able to finish P4 this season. The best places they finished, if my memory serves me correctly, is P5 for Clemens and for Lee Horn at P7. But Horn is looking for that P4 now, albeit I think it's also a bit of a battle in defence there versus what is Marcelo Reyes behind, but Clemens overdoes it into the braking zone, and Lee Horn moves into P4 in prime and P9 overall in a wonderful piece of opportunism, as now Clemens will have to try and fight him back. But I think Marcelo Reyes will have something to say about that as they make the way on through what is their turns at 4, 5 and 6. And coming on down and around and in towards turn at number 9 very shortly via the chicane was all the drivers made the way over the bump there. Lee Horn definitely feeling fighting today as they head in towards the latter half of this lap, and then another 2 to go. But as their batting rages on, Martin Shirley here looking around the outside of James Francis Gal for P23. Both of these drivers heavily impacted by the incident at the start of the race. Shirley most so for RD Simsport, when it all looked like it could be a recovery drive in race number 3, and a welcome one at that. In the end, it's turned into a major recovery instead. And as he makes his way through turn number 6, we see the Smansky Scout flashing his lights, albeit not quite sure what's going on there for Smansky Scout, perhaps hitting the wrong button on the steering wheel. But as they make the way out of turn number 9, Shirley on the inside there, and I think it is going to be a straightforward pass into turn number 10, albeit Smansky Scout will do anything he can to prevent it from being that way, but Shirley in the end getting ahead and covering off the inside line and making P23 here. Smansky Scout will go around the outside, but with the circumference of that corner being ever wide on the outside, it is only going to go one way, and that's the way of the RD Sim Sport driver. As they make their way through turn number 13, we look up to your race leaders who go on to lap number 13 or 14, and it's Millington who still leads ahead of William Chadwick, and Chadwick trying to make it 3 in a row here today, and with it 6 wins in a row after his debut at Brands Hatch last week. But Millington also trying to prove a point, which is that he also wants to take a win up for the Sim Racing Collective. And as they glance their way between the apex, glide their way I should say, and glance over the apex curbs of turns 4, 5 and 6 in quick succession, the number 86 driver here has been faultless so far in this final race of the day, but Chadwick will have other ideas, and we do know just how strong Chadwick's pace is, as meanwhile Andrew Pike chasing after Isaac Doble, contacts the rear of Isaac Doble's car as the two get close together through the chicane, and well, in the end they both managed to survive it there, as Pike I think flashing his lights to say sorry, but as they come through the left-hander turn number 10, Isaac Doble here digging in as much as he can. He wants an overall top 5 plus also that second spot on the Pro podium. Matthew Cheverton now being the best part of 3 seconds up the road, and Cheverton running away with 3rd place overall as well, with the fact that Joseph Doble was not able to catch him. But for Pike, it's all about trying to squeeze on through and go hunting after Joseph Doble at the end of this race. Although Isaac Doble's got other ideas, and also playing rear gunner here to Joseph Doble as they make their way through turns 14 and 15. So the Doble Sim Racing team, but really putting family first as they make their way on around and up towards turn 16. But from them to Andrea Romy behind. You can see in P8 right now, he's picked his way all the way up through 18 places since the start of the race. They're trying to gain a couple more before it's all said and done, but the last lap of the race gets underway as I look out my commentary booth window, and as they make their way onto the last lap, here are your race leaders. Here's Josh Millington of the Sim Racing Collective, and he is ahead of Chadwick still, but 5 tenths is the gap as they break their way into turn number 1, and as they do, we look back here to Andrew Pike versus Isaac Doble as they head up the hill. Leeds defence versus Robbie as well, bit of contact there between Pike and Isaac Doble. Pike goes all in on the brakes, he gets it stopped in time, and as he does, Michael Lees comes on through. Robbie does as well. It's going to be 3 wide down the hill. Pike's going to lead the trio on through, but then Isaac Doble defends well on the inside to cover off turn number 2, and with that mate Lees and also Robbie hold firm, but you can see there Lees trying to take a peek, but he can't quite find it as he goes 2 wheels for a brief moment on the sausage curve at turn number 4. Through 5 and 6 they come, and as they do, the next gen racing yellow driver still battling for P2 in the class, and Isaac Doble fighting so hard here, and I can imagine right now it is literally on the ragged edge for the Honda Civic driver, and for Lees the same as they make their way to turn number 10 for the final time today. But as they come out the left hand and head out towards the right, you see Isaac Doble immediately positioning the car as defensively as possible through turn number 11, albeit in the front of the field. William Chadwick here versus Josh Millington, and we've got a battle on our hands through turns 14 and 15. Bit of contact there between Millington and Chadwick as Millington went wide at turn number 13, but Millington's still ahead. It's kicking off everywhere, but we stay with the leaders right now as they go into turn 16. Millington trying to take his first win of the season. Chadwick trying to make it 6 in a row, and as they make their way out towards the final corner, with Chadwick's on the outside line, Millington's going to defend every inch of the way, and as they exit the final corner, I think Millington may have done it. It's going to be a drag race to the line. It's going to be noses all the way, but Millington does it. He takes his first win of the season ahead of Will Chadwick P2, and Matthew Sheraton makes it his first overall podium of the season, and another prime win to boot for the Aztec Racing Drive ahead of Joseph Doble, Andrew Pike P5, Michael Lees P6, runner-up in the prime class ahead of Isaac Doble, he passed at the end of the race, and then Andrew Romy P8 had a Lee Horn at P9 for a season best performance from Lee Horn, Nick Clemens P10, Marcello Perez P11, and as more of our drivers make their way towards the timeline, we've got a battle here between Jonathan Collins and Paul Scott coming out the final corner. This is a P20 as they head on through. As they head across, it will be Collins who holds on to P20 ahead of Paul Scott, with then Mikey Doble still trying to pick up one more place overall as they make their way out to turn number 17. He does on the cutback there versus James Vasquez Garrett's P23. Not what he would have wanted, but Mikey Doble will take every result he can, given the fact he'll still be leading the overall championship after today, despite the fact race 3 has not gone his way. But that's everybody now at the checker flag, ladies and gentlemen, minus our retirees. And, well, what a race for Josh Millington. The Sim Racing Collective team will be absolutely ecstatic down in the pit lane. And you can see that alongside him right now, the number 5 car of John Higgins Jr., as it will be Higgins Jr. and Andrew Pike who lead Millington home to the pit lane. And, well, he has deserved it. He'll be a hero in the paddock to the team, in the fact he has finally picked up his first win of the season. And, well, his first win of his NXTGEN career, and then what a way to do so, having to battle hard past the prime leaders early on and then hold off Chadwick all the way to the end. It did get a bit feisty between the two of them, but to be fair, it's race number 3, and well, it wouldn't be touring car without some elbows coming out. But meanwhile, Matthew Sheraton as well, the Aztec Racing driver there, making it 2 wins in the Prime class today in races 1 and 3, and well, now really making himself a championship contender in class, albeit he's going to have to carry on this run of form all the way through to the end of the season to be in with an outside chance. But if not, definitely now a top 5 contender, and the 390 driver finding his form at the most critical point in the season. But as they all make their way into the pit lane, Gavin Garner meanwhile having a difficult final race today after that contact at the start of the race with Andrew Pike, and I think that Garner just turned in a little bit prematurely from the camera angles we had available, but still he won't be too dismayed at that because he's had 2 great races. Just race number 3 has not come his way, but he parks up there. Meanwhile, Martin Shirley coming on in, and the RD Simsport driver having a difficult final race with that early instant cost him dear as he heads to the line behind Alex Meredith. The Meredith Motorsport driver there, P14, and what was P6 in the Prime class, despite the fact he was denied the right to start inside the inverted grid and therefore on the second row of the grid, P4. He'll still take the fact he's recovered well to P14, 13 places gained, and will continue that run of form. But as we now look to the scenic camera, and with that, it's now time for the race results. Here they are, subject to any stewards' inquiries. So after 14 more laps of racing here today at the Circuit of the Americas in our 3rd and final race of round 7 of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 3, sponsored by Douglas Motorsport and hosted on iRacing, Josh Millington taking the win for the Sim Racing Collective by only 800ths over Altus Esports' William Chadwick. Matthew Sheraton round off the overall podium there with his first overall podium of the season, and with it another win for the Prime driver, making it 2 wins out of 3 here today for the Aztec Racing driver, ahead of Joseph Doble P4, and then Andrew Pike P5 behind the Double Sim Racing driver, with the Sim Racing Collective making it 2 drivers inside the top 5 in this race. Michael Lee's P6 there, runner-up in the Prime class for Next Gen Racing Yellow, ahead of Isaac Doble, with the Doble Sim Racing driver there, battling hard with Michael Lees, but losing out right at the end. And credit where it's due to Isaac Doble, battling hard for the overall win, and then for an overall podium, but just having not enough pace in the end to be able to keep Sheraton and Lees at bay. Andrew Romy P8 for GRT Esports, and a great recovery drive after a difficult race at number 2. And then Lee Horn for Next Gen Racing Yellow and Nick Clemens for iRacing Esports completed your top 10, and both picking up season best performances, particularly for Lee Horn. P11 best of rest, Marcello Redes for VRGT Racing Team. Luck not quite coming his way in the final race of the day, despite a good, strong early start. And then John Higgins Jr. P12 for the Sim Racing Collective, head of Next Gen Racing for Douglas Motorsports, Jamie Dorey, and then Alex Meredith for Meredith Motorsport P14, and then Gavin Garner P15 there for Next Gen Racing for Douglas Motorsport. Wayne Douglas and Adam Delmont P16, P17, the teammates of Gavin Gardner, ahead of Mark Sykes P18 for Next Gen Racing Blue, and then looking to the end of the top 20, Palamaniti at P19 for GRT Esport, ahead of Next Gen Racing Blues and Jonathan Collins and his teammate Paul Scott just behind him at P21. Martin Shirley P22 for RD Simsport, ahead of Mikey Doble, with the Doble Sim Racing driver having a difficult end to his racing here today, but still 2 strong at top 5 finishes in the first 2 races, so he won't be too displeased with that. And then Aztec Races James Vasquez-Gal P24, ahead of Alan McCain P25 for iRacing Esports, and he was your last lead lap finisher. Finishing a lap down, Daniel Fritz P26 for Whiskey Runners Racing with Next Gen Racing Blue, ahead of Ian Maz for JW Motorsport, and then 4 laps down from retirement in the end after that unfortunate incident in the battle with Michael Lees and Isaac Doble. Reese Watt there, P28. Luck just not going his way this season. And then following on through to the rest of the field, Matthew Addy with the retirement 9 laps in the finish, and therefore be classified as a non-finisher or a DNF for Next Gen Racing Yellow. The same for Costa Chatscontinentado, involved in the open lap instance. Very unfortunate for the Biff Hornet and Epic Collective Racing driver. And Philip Garside retiring at the start of the race for Full Send Racing, our 31st starter, but not a finisher of the race. So therefore, 31 starters, 28 finishers, and 25 of those on the lead lap. And that concludes all of our racing here today in the United States of America, but not quite in terms of our broadcast today, of course, because coming up very shortly are our post-round interviews with our selected drivers, and we will be back in approximately 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, to give you an update on who's going to be interviewed and hear, especially from them, what they had to say about the racing here in Texas. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to conduct our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. And today we have 3 drivers available for interview, and we're going to be starting off with Alex Meredith and hearing his thoughts on what has been quite the rollercoaster ride of a day in the state of Texas, in the fact what was a fantastic drive in race number 2 was completely undermined, if you will, by a post-race penalty, which arguably should have been that way. Well, that's up to the stewards and indeed the automated stewards and also the live stewards from NXTGEN Racing. I think that will be looked at after today's racing. But still, a race number 1 to be proud of after having to recover, and a race number 3 to then charge his way back through the field. And then we'll be hearing from William Chadwick from Autos Esports, the pro class driver there, almost making it 3 wins once again, but not quite in race number 3. And we'll hear his thoughts on battling with Josh Millington. And then lastly, we'll hear from Michael Lease, the NXTGEN Racing yellow driver in the Prime class, who enjoyed a brilliant battle from start to finish in the hunt for a win in the class today, but P2 every step of the way. But as we kick off with Alex Meredith, he does join me in the interview room now. And we do say hello to Alex Meredith there, albeit I believe he may have just stepped away from the microphone for a brief moment. Perfect timing, but as we do get ready for him to join us, we'll wait for him to return. But definitely, I think he joins me now. Good evening to you, Alex. And well, what a absolutely crazy trio of races for yourself. It looked tough out there, and things just didn't seem to go your way today. I do believe we may have some technical issues with Alex Meredith's microphone, ladies and gentlemen, so we are just going to see what we can do about that. But in the meantime, in terms of his racing, a really good recovery drive in race number 3. And we are just going to see if we can get those technical issues resolved in a brief moment. We do apologise about this, but technical issues do seem to be blighted us today from a number of perspectives. But we are just trying to troubleshoot those potential technical issues for Alex Meredith at the moment. But we will hopefully have him join us very shortly. In fact, what I think we may do in the meantime, if he's not able to get the issues resolved quickly, we will just see if we can get him to come through, but we don't seem to be able to resolve the issues at the moment. Alrighty, well, we are going to postpone interviewing Alex for the time being, and we will try to, get him a little bit later on. But if not, we'll jump straight to our second interviewee, and that will be William Chadwick, who gets ready to join me in the room. Well, in fact, we might actually go to Michael Lease, as I think all of our drivers are not available at the moment in brilliant timing. So we are just seeing if Michael Lease is available. We do apologise for this, ladies and gentlemen. It just seems to be the timing of the day. But we are instead going to have our interview of Michael Lease join us. He's meant to be third, but he joins us first. And as he joins me in the interview room now, good evening to you, Michael. And well, what a day it's been for yourself today in terms of battling for the championship points, and in particular being Mr. Second Place in the Prime class all the way through.
Yeah. I mean, whew, what an intense set of races this day has been. Yeah, I'm just about spent really. I've got hardly any energy left.
Oh, goodness me. Well, it looks as though you had to fight firmly for every single point out there today. And just talking about the circuit of the America's West course, a lot of drivers were talking out in the build-up tonight about the fact it's a course that seems to be very touring car centric in its nature, with its tight flying corners, also a number of wide open spaces to overtake, and it looked as though at any moment you might have had somebody looking for a move on you, or you were looking for a move on somebody.
Yeah, it was very intense, especially if you're in a pack. You know, if you got a little bit offline, then somebody was sticking a nose into to try and take that position off you as well. So yeah, a lot of mixing it up there. I was concerned that I thought, obviously that I had to learn, like I told you last week, I had to learn this track, and I thought, I'm not going to be on the pace. But I found the pace, and I was right up there with the front guys. which very, 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 very happy about, especially for the championship. But yeah, I mean, just wow, what a set of races. I mean, I don't know what it looked like on the broadcast, but it felt like we were rubbing doors the whole way through.
Oh, most definitely. It's some of the most frantic racing we've seen in the NXTCC's history, let alone Season 3. And I keep saying that week in, week out, but it does seem to be true. Everybody takes it up a level over the course of each and every round. And well, qualifying for yourself today didn't quite go, I think, the way you wanted it to. P13 on the grid. Looked as though you struggled a little bit out there.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my fastest lap, but P13. Considering, I think, was I second or third pro-am? I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't too bad. I was satisfied enough. I was, like I say, probably about half a second off my ultimate time. I just couldn't find that. I just couldn't find that pace for some reason in the very beginning in qualifying and practice. But yeah, luckily I found it when it counted in the races. So yeah, I may not have won any, and it may be second in all, but I will take that. If you'd have offered me that, at the start of the day, I'd have absolutely bitten your entire arm off.
Oh, indeed. And then, speaking about biting things off, we saw you go absolutely rabid into race number 1, charging your way through the field, and in the end, not quite able to bring home the win in the race, but bringing home a P8 overall, and with it, a P2 in class, just behind what was in the end, I do believe, Matthew Cheverton.
Yeah, again, I think Matthew's a quick kid, right? I think he won 2, didn't he, today? So, yeah, he's definitely one to watch out for. I'm just kind of lucky he didn't do the full season. Otherwise, I might be looking over my shoulder for him a bit more. But yeah, I'll take second. I'll take second every single time. If the win is different every race, then give me those second places. Yeah, more than happy with it. Happy that I've got the pace to be up there. Like I said, I did find probably meeting 4 or 5 it was before I actually found the pace in the car. But now I found it, and I can sort of keep up with the big boys. I'm in a much happier place. So yeah, race 1, fantastic. It was a bit scrappy, like fighting up there, and there was people going left, right, and centre all over the place. I think race 2 was where it happened more, but we'll talk about that one in a minute. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I brought in what I needed to.
Oh, indeed. And then going into race number 2, we saw you starting pretty much and ending up where you finished in terms of starting P8 on the grid, finishing P7. But this time, battling with Reeswat, not quite having the opportunity to find a win. But Reeswat in return and making a resurgent charge to the lead. But I think you felt as though there you've been left out a little bit.
Well, with that one, how can I say it? So in the very beginning, I got pushed very hard into turn 1 and was very lucky to not have my race ended there. Yeah, Mr. Douglas, I'm looking at you, pal. But yeah, I was lucky not to get my race ended there, and everything kicked off after that, and it was carnage everywhere on T1, and I managed to just about get my way through. I had to slam on the brakes to avoid spinning Mikey Doble out, and that's when Reese got past me. From there on, I was just sitting behind Reese and Jamie for the entire race, basically, until the last lap. Then into turn 1, I tried to do Jamie and get past him, and he didn't want to give it up. So we went side by side into the S's, and there was some contact, and yeah, and by the time I'd come back on, Reese had already gone. I knew it was over, and I was going to let Jamie back through because I was like, well, I don't know if that was my fault or not. It is what it is. I'm not beating Reese now, but he seemed really slow. I didn't know if he was like waiting for me, but it turns out apparently he got damaged from that. So I apologised to him. I don't know if it was my fault. I hadn't seen it, but that's touring car racing.
Oh, most definitely. If there's not elbows out midway for a race in touring car, then it's most likely not touring car. And that continued in our third and final race of the day with a top 16 reverse grid, which saw you pretty much start where you finished in race number 2 as well, all to your credit. And we saw you make some very quick progress, but then a very hard and fast battle of Isaac Doble, which saw Reeswat also get into the mix eventually. And I think it could have been very close to curtains for all 3 of you at one point.
Yeah, that was intense. I was literally biting the top of my steering wheel trying to get past Isaac. Like he was my target. I know he's second place in the championship and he's the closest to me. So I was like, I am beating this guy, whatever it takes. I made sure I was real close. I was giving him some little taps here and there, trying to unsettle him a little bit, make him a bit nervous. And then in the last lap, I managed to send one around the outside after the corner after the hairpin. I managed to send it around the outside and cling on, and that then turns to the inside for the next two. And yeah, I was quite proud of that move, and I don't know what it looked like, but it felt great.
Oh, indeed. It looks as though you're having a lot of fun out there from start to finish, and with 3 second-place finishes now in the races today, your advantage in the championship will definitely extend from 27 points going into this round. Just a thought with regards to 3 rounds to go, you've now effectively established yourself as the favourite in the Prime class. Do you feel that way in yourself, or is it just take it from round to round?
I mean, I'm going to just take it from round to round. Yeah, I want to win. I want to win. That's what I'm here for. But not too sure about Sonoma. Don't know if I'm going to be fast there. It's not a track I've done a lot in. What else have we got? Let me just have a quick look at the calendar. Yeah, Sandown. I don't have Sandown, so I have to learn Sandown. That's the next one I've got to learn. Never been round there. Sonoma, I have been round, but not a lot. It's not until we get back to Hockenheim where I'm going to be comfortable again. So I'm kind of, the next 2 meetings, I'm going to have to just sort of play it by ear, try and stay somewhere near the guys that I'm fighting with, and then hopefully, if I need to repair any damage, then I've got Hockenheim at the end to try and bring it home.
Well, indeed, an interesting way of looking at it. So damage limitation for the next 2 rounds, and well, we head to Australia for Sandown in a week's time, and good to hear your thoughts on the circuit, and we look forward to seeing you there. But just before we do let you go, Michael, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I would. I'd like to thank Isaac Doble for that last race. That was awesome, And yeah, we've been battling tough for the last couple of rounds, but it stayed friendly, if you like. Well, I don't know if friendly is the word, but it stayed civil, and it's it's been real good fun. So yeah, I want to thank Isaac. I also want to thank NXTGEN for putting on the league and letting me drive for them, and all of our sponsors, Sam Cases and Powermax Racing. I want to thank yourself again, Paul. You always put on a great show, so again, I'm going to look forward to seeing this. I think that about wraps it up for me.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room, as always, Michael. But with that, congratulations on your triplet of second places in class today, and also 3 top 10s overall in each race. Brilliant momentum building your championship, and we look forward to seeing how you get on down under at Sandown in a week's time.
Thanks, Paul. I'll save you some of the champers.
All the best. So hearing there from Michael Lees, your Prime Championship leader going into tonight, and Championship leader exiting from tonight, and the pace continues to flow, much like the podium champagne for the Prime drive for NXTGEN Racing Yellow. 13th in qualifying, pleased with that despite the fact it wasn't a perfect lap, but it was good enough in his opinion, and then having to battle hard and fast in all 3 races, which really this season has been about the battles of the Prime drivers, fighting away in amongst the pros and the Primes, but Michael Lees stayed really enjoying the fight, and in race number 3, coming to the forte of batting of Isaac Doble, we continue to see the pictures here, and the 2 drivers never letting one another breathe for a second. They may have had other drivers get involved, including Marcelo Reles and also Andrew Pike, but the key thing is they never let one another go, and the batting was all the way to the final lap of the race, which saw Michael Lees take the win around the outside on the last couple of corners. And well, now he will be the favourite going into the final 3 rounds, but it sounds like it's going to be damage limitation next 2. Could we see the momentum swing the other way for the season finale at Hockenheim in 3 weeks time? We'll have to wait and see. But coming from our first interview of today, we've had to do things in a little bit of a different order, as we explained earlier, due to technical issues. We now come to our second interview of today, and that is Alex Meredith. And those technical issues have been averted. So as we now join him in the interview room, we say good evening to Alex. And Alex, can you hear me?
Yep, all good now. Sorry about the technical issue.
That's no problem at all. Glad we've been able to resolve it. And well, firstly, I have to say commiserations to yourself for today, because in all 3 races, after an absolutely superb qualifying session, you had so much pace out there. But whether it was bad luck in race 1, race number 2, getting the result to then have your result taken away from you, or race 3 having to fight your way through the field, I think you felt as though it was a bit more in the car today to give you the results.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all 3 races, there was always something sort of going wrong. It wasn't a massive thing, but there was always just something holding me back. Like race 1, I had, bent steering and things like that. So yeah, bit more challenging, but I do love a challenge.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of the change, when you rose to from the outset, qualifying, taking P10 on the grid, and with it P2 in the class, only in being beaten to the top post, I do believe, by what was Reese Watt, who qualified P6. How did it feel like then qualifying? Because this circuit, a very tricky one, but you made it look easy.
Well, qualifying felt really good. I thought I got a decent lap in. I didn't get too many off tracks, which is always good around here because the track limits are very tricky to get right. There was maybe slightly more, but overall, I think it was a pretty good one, and well done to Reese Watt, because I don't know how he got that lap out the back.
Well, it may have been 1.5 tenths between the two of you come the exit of qualifying, but then going into race number 1, knocked out about a bit with the steering being out of alignment come the end, and looked as though it was just adjusting to the state of the car and getting the car home.
Yeah, basically, race 1 was basically written off in terms of gaining any positions by the first turn. I turned in, and obviously because it's blind, I couldn't see the apex. And on the apex was a sort of half-spun car that I couldn't really avoid. So I hit it, and then I had 45-degree steering for the rest of the race.
Oh, goodness me. Well, one to move on from. And then in race number 2, let's put aside the post-race penalty that was applied. Race number 2, really seeing you at your best, which we've come to know and absolutely love about your racing. And fighting your way all the way through from P24 into the top 10 into what was the battle for the top 10, and finishing in what was originally, provisionally, I do believe, P13.
Yeah, I mean, race 2, I got extremely lucky with the lap 1. I kind of managed to get on a line where I avoided all the incident at turn 1. So it's all about just trying to keep up with the pros ahead, and watching Paul Scott behind as well, because he was putting a challenge on. And then I have to say hats off to Isaac Doble as well, because he had some fantastic defense. He made no mistakes, and I was just kind of sitting behind him waiting for him to make a mistake, and it just kind of didn't happen.
We did see a theme of battling today amongst the very best in the prime class, yourself and Isaac Doble being 2 of the big names out there. And well, in the end, not being able to take what was the reverse grid top 16, but instead having to start from P27 on the grid. Race number 3, you just simply let your racer do the talking, and P14 come the end of it, P6 in class. A great rate to end your day.
Yeah, obviously unfortunate about the penalty, but I just thought to myself, you know what? Let's just go for it. Hope to not get into any incidents, which once again I was fortunate to have the inside line into turn 1, so I didn't get caught up in any of the antics at turn 1 once again. And it was just all about trying to keep up with the couple of guys ahead who were ultra quick, like Jamie, and yeah, just trying to bring it home in a good position, really.
Oh, indeed, and some key points in your championship campaign, but along the way in chasing after Jamie Dorian Company, we saw a number of drivers continue to scrap with you, and you mixed up with some of the pros out there, including the likes of not just Jamie, but also John Higgins Jr. and Gavin Garner. I have to ask, what are your thoughts about when you see you're racing against not just your class peers, but also pro drivers there? Is there a different approach, or do you just see everybody as equal out there and ready to trade elbows with them as needed?
Well, it depends what position I'm in. If I'm in a top 15 or top 20, then I'll probably fight the pros a little bit harder, because I kind of want to keep that position overall. But if it's for P27, P28, something like that, and I know there's no point benefit from fighting them, then I will just let them through. But I look at everybody the same. I don't get frightened by pro drivers. I don't think any of us do.
Oh, indeed. There's not much to be gained in certain circumstances, but when you can make those gains, battling them with them, going all for it, particularly when a reverse grid position is involved for race number 3. But having talked about your races, now we've got 3 rounds remaining, and well, next time out it's Australia and the home of horsepower that is Sandown. How are you feeling for the rather short circuit?
I've never raced at Sandown, but I also said that about Canada, and I did surprisingly well at it. So I'm going to go there with an open mind, do a lot of practice this week, and try and get near the front again.
Well, we do look forward to seeing how that practice may make perfect for you, Alex. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
I'd like to thank you, Paul, for your awesome commentary throughout this whole championship. It's been a real spectacle to watch afterwards. It's been really exciting, and obviously everybody watching as well. You guys are really awesome. Thanks for all the support, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, that's it.
That's no problem at all, Alex. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you in the interview room, as always. Congratulations once again on your performances today. They may not have brought you the points you wanted, but you've definitely, I think, stolen the hearts of quite a few people tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you in Australia in a week's time.
Thank you.
So hearing there from Alex Meredith, the Pro-Am driver there from Meredith Motorsport, who I think are feeling a bit of frustration today, but not showing it. And that's the one thing that stands out most about him to me, in the fact he's showing a huge level of maturity. And I say that word time and time again, but when you're racing a field as close as this, you really do need to have that in your back pocket, the ability to have maturity and resilience in tandem. In the fact when things don't go right, you don't let it get underneath your skin, you just carry on and push on, and that's exactly what he did today. Qualifying was absolutely brilliant. P10, P2 in Pro-Am class, but then having it all taken away from it at the start of race number 1 with that instant at turn number 1, but kept on. P24 with a 45-degree steering lock, and then going into race number 2, where it was a great recovery drive, only to be taken away from him due to a post-race penalty. And then race number 3, made the most of the race start and finished P14 and P6 in class. Some key points, and well, could he perhaps have a better day in Australia, given his run of form is, if it's a circuit he's not acquainted with, as he said himself, he normally seems to do quite well, much like at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Well, I definitely recommend keeping your eyes on the Meredith Motorsport 44 Elantra, because I think it could be springing some surprises down under. As we now come to our final interview of the day, albeit listed as our second interview there, because we've had to go in a bit of a different order due to technical issues, we now get ready to speak to Will Chadwick, or William Chadwick as he's known in full, and we'll be hearing his thoughts with regards to the racing from start to finish. But as he does get ready to join me in the interview room, it's going to be interesting to hear his perspective on 3 wins almost, but in the end 2 wins and a hard-fought battle for P2. He joins me now, and good evening to you, Will, and what a day it has been today. You flew high for Altus Esports in all 4 sessions, whether it be qualifying or the 3 races, but not quite able to make perfection happen today, but came extremely close.
Disappointment, Paul. Not perfection. It's not what I strive for. And I know next week it's only going to be harder. So it was an opportunity missed, I think, for those 6 in a row. But, you know, we take it on the chin. We still got good points, got through the reverse grid well. So, you know, it is what it is, but not my best day.
Oh, indeed. Well, interesting to hear you say that. And starting off with qualifying, of course, going into this round with no success ballast in the car, we expected you to be right up there, but knocking it out the park in the end by 3 attempts to put it on pole. It looked as though the Honda, yourself, and the Circuit of the Americas was all hooked up.
Yeah, it was decent. I think there was more in it. I definitely got more out of it in practice, and the conditions didn't change, so I should have probably had a better qualifying time, but really, I'd say it's a decent effort for the qualifying time, but I know I need to do better than that next week if I'm coming to with, let's say, I don't know how much ballast I'd have, but you know, it could be half a tank more fuel or something like this. So we'll see. But I know I'm going to have to do better next week to beat the likes of Mikey Doble and the rest that have not got any ballast.
Oh, indeed. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of that ballast later, because I do have some working notes on that already. But coming on to the first race of the day, must admit, again, on that theme of not being perfect, difficult start for yourself and Gavin Garner getting the launch into turn 1 in the Audi.
Yeah, I've tried everything to make the car launch better. No idea how that launch worked for him. But yeah, I managed to keep it on the exit of 1, so it wasn't too bad. Just had to pick my braking right and cover him off. But really the disappointing note from race 1 was not getting the fastest lap. I really tried. I got within half a tenth, but I just think that by the time I had really it nailed down in my head what I needed to do, I just didn't quite have the tyre for it. So only 20. I didn't think I took 28 points, so 1 point less than was ideal. And yeah, it was an okay race. Other than that, the toe obviously helps behind for the drivers, but once I managed to break it, it wasn't too bad.
Oh, indeed. And despite not getting the fastest lap, it didn't dent your motivation to go into race at number 2 at full of vigour once again, and this time getting a better launch off the line compared to your peers. And race 2 looked to be a race which was in control until you had to serve a slowdown.
Yeah, I would say that the launch side of it, like you mentioned, I don't believe I got any better of a launch. Maybe it's in my head, I'm not sure. I'd have to check the replay, but I feel like it was actually Gavin not quite getting the launch that he got in race 1. However, got off the line well, made the mistake, just pushing the boundaries of the track. By going really close to the off tracks and the slowdowns, you can get a lot of time around here. It's very evident of that, especially through the midsection after the S's. And it's just a case of a small mistake, put me back a bit, but I knew I had the pace to overcome the drivers ahead of me, and it was just a case of picking my moves, setting them up, and regaining the lead.
Indeed, and brilliant battling we saw throughout, and I think that battling would set the context for race number 3. But just before coming on to race 3, we saw in the reverse grid draw it would only be a top 16 inverted, quite similar to Brand's hatching away. Did you have any thoughts about that before we went racing?
I don't think you want to think about the past. I was thinking about what I had at the time being. I knew 16 was doable. I obviously had a good start, but got caught up in a bit of carnage on lap 2, which ultimately really cost me because I actually got caught up mainly with Alex. So if I'd managed to get Alex there, I think I could have had the win. However, we picked through the pack pretty all right. Had to be quite aggressive with people, and yeah, it was a good race.
And I have to ask, obviously, with that reverse grid, it's the first time this season where we saw 4 Pro-Ams leading at the race for the opening 5 laps. And, well, the likes of Matthew Cheverton, Reese Watt, Isaac Doble and Michael Lees weren't going to roll over when you came up close behind them. We saw quite a brilliant battle between yourself and Cheverton.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got the right to fight for the position, and it's just a case of having to deal with that. The main way that I think I dealt with that was just by picking my moves and making people make mistakes. You can't always pass someone by slipstreaming past them and under the brakes. I tended to give every move I had a go, but not like silly, like going too far into the braking zone, but just so I was compromising the next corners. Because realistically, time was always going to matter at the end of the day. You need to get through quite a few cars per lap if you want to get up to the front. So it was a case of being efficient and just trying to break through. But yeah, it went pretty well. I was pretty aggressive with some moves, but I think they were all fairly good in terms of not pushing people off. Apologies if I sound a bit stuffy. I have caught a cold, but yeah, I think most of my moves were okay. But yeah, it was a decent fight through.
Oh, most definitely. But then there was one driver who stood in your way to the end of the day, and I think with one more lap you may have been able to get him, Josh Millington.
I think that looking at it like that with Josh, you can say it may be one more lap, and obviously it can look like that at the line, but I sent it ridiculously hard on that last lap to try and close into him, and it was only through an incredibly aggressive move that I was able to even get alongside him at a section where you end up normally compromising quite a bit of entry speed. So, I was really close to slowdowns, and really the credit has to go to Josh because I felt like I was running okay laps, and I wasn't able to close enough. I was only getting a tenth a lap maybe, and I had quite a few laps at it, so there's no excuses that I can give in terms of not having enough time. I had enough time to get him. I just wasn't able to produce the pace, but full credit to Josh because he drove really well, defended well, fought well, and he fully deserves the win, but very disappointing from my side.
We're still taking a major haul point into round number 7 in a week's time, and we can advise that provisionally you'll be P5 in the championship, which means success ballast wise you'll be carrying just shy of 25 kilograms in the car, and it'll be time for Sandown in Australia. How are you feeling for the home of horsepower?
I don't think I've ever drove Sandown, especially in a TCR. But I'll get to it. I'll do a couple laps when the practice rolls around next week. Get a bit of time in. I was suggesting that I'm going to need to put a bit more time in, I think, to finding a few more tents when it comes to these next rounds, because the car's only going to get heavier. And I think if we're looking to try and challenge some form of run at the title, I know it sounds crazy from only doing a few rounds, but if we're going to try and challenge any run at the title, I'm going to need to be faster than I have been in these first 2 rounds to counteract for the ballast increase.
Well, Dean, it'll be interesting to see whether you can find that extra pace to offset the ballast, and we wish you all the best in your preparations for next week's round in Australia. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Well, thank you, Paul, for commentating. Thank you for all the league admins that make this possible. To the people that steward the races. Jamie, obviously, for organising a lot of the championship. Thank you to Altus Esports, VRS partners, Race Tech and all these ones. And I appreciate everyone putting this on and letting me come race. It's a lot of fun to come here on a Tuesday and race some touring cars, a little bit of door banging, and hopefully next week we'll get some more points on the board.
Well, Will, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. I hope your cold does go away soon and you feel better. But congratulations once again on your performances today. And we look forward to seeing you down under in Australia for round 8 next time out.
Thanks, Paul. I'll try not to be upside down next week. See you later.
All the best. So here and there from Will Chadwick, a lovely chap and a lovely way to end our interview today, from hearing from our pro driver who's absolutely charging high for Altus Esports, and interested in his perception on the racing today in terms of the fact if he wasn't able to achieve perfection, then it's disappointment. And you can understand why in the fact that he's come charging into the second half of the season, joining us around number 6, and therefore with no success ballast, but clearly a lot of pace behind him with the car and driver in hand. He is trying to make a late charge for the championship, and highly possible to get him into contention with 2 opening rounds without success ballast, and therefore stealing away the majority of the points from the crowd. But now the challenge will be set even higher, because he'll have 24.5 kilograms of success ballast for being P5 in the championship, and will he be able to find the pace to stay one step ahead like some of his rivals, including Mikey Doble, have been able to do so over the course of the season thus far? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but the challenge has been laid, and if Chadwick can pull it off, well, only time will tell. But with that, that concludes our interviews for today, and you've just heard from William Chadwick, the number 30 driver for Altus Esports in the Pro class. Previously, we heard from Alex Meredith, the number 44 driver in the Prime class for Meredith Motorsport, and we originally heard from the number 55 driver from NXTGEN Racing Yellow, Prime classes driver Michael Lees. Congratulations to all 3 of them, and thank you to them all once again for joining me in the interview room. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for a future season of the NXTCC, or alternatively you want to know about some of the other series that are upcoming, with the fact that summer is practically upon us now and we go into an absolute overdrive of our series at Next Gen Racing when it comes to summertime. Well, firstly, we'd recommend that you check out our website, and that's at www.nextgenracing.co.uk. And as our website appears on screen right now, is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, and we've been hosting leagues for over 16.5 years on PC and console combined, and indeed we go from strength to strength. And in terms of what still lies in wait, we've got the NXTCC Season 3 currently, and at the end of this month we kick off an all-new season of the GT3 Championship, and at the start of July we also have the return of the endurance version of the Pro Tour GT3 Championship, and we've also got more series scheduled for later this year, albeit we can't reveal too much about them at the moment, but I can tell you one thing, it's going to be something very different that you don't normally see on a sim racing platform on PC, and we'll tell you all about that in due course. But if you don't want to necessarily go to our website, you can of course instead follow us on social media, and the best place to do so is on our Facebook group, and that's at facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing, and there you can find out not just about the series we run, but also about other aspects of Next Gen Racing, including what we do in the real motorsport world, with a good number of our admins being also track marshals up and down the United Kingdom, and also some of us also being real world racers, taking our sim racing craft to the real circuit and looking to do our best. But we'd also like to take a moment at this time to say thank you to our sponsors, and in particular for this series, Douglas Motorsport, their web address www.douglasmotorsport.com, and well, for Douglas Motorsport, They are, I do believe, as we do just get our breath for a brief moment there. Do apologise. The leading race team in drive development, which aims to give drivers a path of progression to LMP3 class racing from karts to Ginetta Junior and Ginetta GT4. Alternatively, a path via British Formula 3. And if you'd like to know more about the team who are specialists in British Formula 3 and Ginetta Cup racing, please do head to their website. Their website again, douglasmotorsport.com. And thank you to them for sponsoring this series. But now our attention turns to what lies in wait a week from now, and it is none other than round number 8. And Tuesday, the 13th of June 2023, is going to be down under in Australia at Sandown, the home of horsepower. 2 short drag strip straights connected together by a series of only what is 5 to 6 corners. It's a short circuit, but I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never seen racing at Sandown, you're in for an absolute treat. And I think we're going to see plenty of door-to-door and door banging over the course of the 3 races there. But until then, that's all we've got time for today. We have been NXTGEN Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.